and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before I dive into the meeting, I just want to, today there's a new face at the table, but not new to the town. Rick Whalen is here on behalf of Whalen Fire. Thomas Crouch, who normally is here representing us, is away, so Rick is filling in today and tomorrow, so I just wanted to make sure everybody knew who he was. Shelby, do you have correspondence?
No.
Just correspondence at public hearings?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, the first thing that we have is a proclamation. I guess I will read it. Month of the Military Child Proclamation. Whereas the town of Shelter Island is a close-knit community that values service, sacrifice, and support for one another, and whereas military children, though often unseen, serve alongside their families by demonstrating strength, resilience, and adaptability through frequent moves, school transitions, and long periods of separation from loved ones. And whereas these young individuals are an important part of our extended community and their experiences and contributions enrich the fabric of our town, and whereas it is important that we as a community take time to recognize and uplift military children whose sacrifices are made quietly but meaningfully in support of our nation's armed forces, and whereas the Month of the Military Child provides an opportunity for Shelter Island residents to come together in appreciation, recognizing the unique challenges these children face while celebrating their strengths and achievements, and whereas the American Legion Auxiliary Mitchell Unit 281, in partnership with the Shelter Island Schools National Honor Society, is working on a service project aimed at easing the burden on military children, improving their mental health, and supporting their educational and developmental needs. Now, therefore, be it known that the town of Shelter Island proudly recognizes and honors military children and reaffirms its commitment to fostering a supportive and inclusive community for all youth. And be it further resolved that the town board of the town of Shelter Island hereby declares April 2026 as the month of the military child and encourages all residents to participate in Purple Up Day on Thursday, April 30th, 2026, by wearing purple as a visible sign of support and appreciation for military children both within our community and across the nation. And I want to just call up Sharon Gibbs, who is spearheading this on behalf of the Ladies Auxiliary. Sharon, I don't know if you'd like to just take a minute to talk about Purple Up Day for everybody. I would say step back a little bit further so you can be on camera.
My auxiliary hat on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I did write that for me too.
Okay.
I'd like to thank the town board for making this proclamation. My name is Sharon Gibbs, and I am representing the American Legion Auxiliary, our unit here on Shelter Island 281. I'm the chairperson of our newly rejuvenized Children and Youth Committee, and we are celebrating Month of the Military Child. I think kind of that the state that we're in our country and things going on, this is a great time to start this initiative. We hope that's going to become an annual event. And we have been selling online, though that has closed now, t-shirts. We met our goal of selling t-shirts. And we've raised at the last count was the end was $870. And we will also be having on our Purple Up Day, which is going to be for Shelter Island on April 30th. And it's purple because everyone keeps asking me that. It's actually all the colors of the military branch uniform: Army green, Marine red, and the blues from the Navy, the Air Force, Space Force, and Coast Guard. And they're put together, make purple to show a unifying and support of military initiatives, and again for the children. And we are now encouraging everyone in the community to wear purple. Wear a scarf, a pin, a hair tie, anything that day would be great, just to show that, you know, you're thinking about those children. We will culminate with a little bake sale for at the school. Everything will be $1 so that the kids can also help kids themselves. And we will be taking all those funds, and everything will be going, the committee will be working on charities through the auxiliary, the Legion, other military organizations, and we hope to be able to get to about 3 different organizations to help both physical, educational, and overall wellness of children. And so again, we appreciate you guys supporting this initiative and appreciate everybody here who sort of supported that, and again, encourage you to do that on April 30th. We are purple. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to, before I move to resolutions, is there anyone in the audience who has a question about any of the resolutions that were not subject to public hearing? Stephen?
Stephen Jacobs, two brief comments about 2 of the resolutions. First, the resolution with respect to the ADU tax exemption. I wanted to commend the board for substantially revising what had initially been proposed. The initial version would have allowed somebody with a mega mansion and mega income to get a tax break. It also didn't have any requirements with respect to the rent for the unit. The town board has responded, and they deserve commendation for that, so kudos. The second resolution I wanted to briefly comment on is the one with authorizing the supervisor to enter into a letter of engagement for a housing study. Like the agreement with an architect that was approved 3 weeks ago, the public really has no idea what this is about. The letter of engagement, like the agreement with the architect, weren't posted. RFP wasn't posted, and I think the public deserves a little more background so we can understand what's going on, and if there are concerns, be able to express them. I might also add that my concerns have been elevated because 2 or 3 days after the architect resolution was passed, I foiled the town for a copy of what supervisor had been authorized to execute, and I still haven't gotten it, which raises in my mind, if in fact there was an agreement, at least in final form, at that point, why hasn't it been made public? And if there wasn't an agreement in final form, then what exactly was the town board authorizing the supervisor to do? So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else with questions or comments? Anyone on Zoom? Pam?
Yeah, so my question is, 2 weeks ago, you had talked about doing,
Pam, if you could state your name for the record first.
Pam Demarest. So my question to the board is, a few weeks ago, you had mentioned doing an RFP for the comprehensive plan consultant, the environmental consultant that you were going to hire, and I was just wondering why it wasn't on the agenda last week. It's not on the agenda for tomorrow's discussion work session, and I was wondering when that might be readdressed.
This public comment section is just for any resolutions that we're about to read. So you can either at the end when we do general public comments, or tomorrow at the work session.
Okay, well then I'll just follow up on what Stephen said about the Nelson Pope Voorhees resolution that has no monies attached to that. We have no idea what that agreement is for the housing needs assessment then. And I think that is of concern. So I'd like you to take that into consideration on that resolution. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Liz, do you want to start us off?
Yep.
All right. Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Shelter Island hereby directs that a public hearing be set on April 27th, 2026 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter to hear any and all persons either for or against a local law entitled A Local Law Amending Chapter 115 Taxation, Article 8 Exemption for an Accessory Dwelling Unit, and Article 9 Tax Bill Enclosures. Be it enacted by the town board of the town of Shelter Island as follows. This local law is adapted pursuant to the authority granted to the Municipal Home Rule Law, Section 10, General Powers of the Local Governments to adopt and amend local laws. If any section, provision, or part of this local law shall be adjudged invalid or unconstitutional by court of competent jurisdiction, then such adjudication shall not affect the validity of the local law as a whole or any section, provision, or part thereof, so is not adjudged invalid or unconstitutional. This local law shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State. See Article. Okay. Article 8, exemption for accessory dwelling unit. Section 115-25, exemption granted, eligibility requirements, limitations pursuant to real property tax law 421-P, a qualifying accessory dwelling unit defined as an accessory apartment under Section 133-1B of the Town Code of the Town of Shelter Island, constructed, reconstructed, altered, or improved after the effective date of this local law, that provides independent living facilities for one or more persons on a year-round basis, shall be exempt from an increase in assessed value attributable to the qualifying accessory dwelling unit, limited to a $200,000 increase as determined in the initial year of the exemption for a period of 5 years. Where the equalization rate equals or exceeds 95%, the increase in assessed value shall equal the market value. The exemption shall be reduced over an additional 5-year period as follows. 1, in the subsequent 3 years of the additional period, the exemption shall decrease each year by 25% of the exemption base. 2, in the final 2 years of the additional period, the exemption shall decrease by a further 10% during each of the final 2 years. 3, the exemption shall expire at the end of the additional 5-year period. B, in order to be eligible for this exemption, a qualifying accessory dwelling unit must have a value of reconstruction, alteration, improvement, or new construction costs of at least $3,000, must not include any ordinary maintenance or repair, and must meet each of the following additional requirements. 1, must be registered as an accessory apartment with the building department in accordance with the procedure in Town Code 133-17C. 2, must be the owner's primary residence. 3, the yearly rent charge to the tenant of the qualifying ADU must be at or below the New York HUD fair market rent for Nassau, Suffolk. 4, the owner must qualify for the STAR exemption in order to be eligible for this exemption. Article 9, tax bill enclosures, 11526 definition. As used in this article, the following terms shall have the meaning indicated. Enclosures, a notice, circulate, pamphlet, card, handbill, QR code, or other enclosure concerning a matter of public concern of service. Section 155-27, authorization for tax bill enclosures. The tax receiver of Shelter Island shall include with the tax bill of the town of Shelter Island certain enclosures so long as A, the enclosure has been authorized by resolution of the town board, B, the enclosure includes a notation that is included by order of the town of Shelter Island, C, the enclosure does not reference an elected official by name, but only the title of office, and D, the enclosure does not include any matter that is of political nature, is propaganda, or any type of advertising. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Whereas Overbrook Real Property LLC, care of Emily Altschultz Miller, 16 Princeton Avenue, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 700-538, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for a permit to remove and dispose of 128-foot 6 inches of existing face bulkhead and a 12-foot north return, and to construct a new 128-foot 6-inch face bulkhead and 12-foot north return in kind in place for a total of 140-foot 6-inch, and provide a 10-foot wide vegetated non-turf buffer with a 4-foot wide walking path as per plans prepared by KS Costello Marine Contracting Corporation dated 1/16/26 and approved by the New York State DEC on 2/3/26. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 53 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held on Monday, April 27th, 2026 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter prevailing time in the Shelter Island Town Hall, 38 North Ferry Road, Shelter Island, New York, 11964, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed application. So moved. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Shelter Island hereby directs that a public hearing be held on April 27th, 2026 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter to hear any and all persons either for or against a local law entitled A Local Law Amending Chapter 36 Beaches and Parks, be enacted by the town board of the town of Shelter Island as follows. This local law is adopted pursuant to the authority granted by Municipal Home Rule Law, Section 10, General Powers of Local Governments to adopt and amend local laws. If any section, provision, or part of this local law shall be judged invalid or unconstitutional by a court of competent jurisdiction, then such education, not saying that right, shall not affect the validity of the local law as a whole or any section, provision, or part thereof, not so adjudged invalid or unconstitutional. This local law shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State. I'm just going to read the parts that we are amending. So under parking stickers, a sticker issued by the Office of the Town Clerk to, and we're adding those who are not residents as defined in this article. It continues on. And then the period of time is being changed from Friday preceding the observance of Memorial Day through Labor Day to May 15th to September 15th of any year. We are also adding a definition for resident, all domiciliaries, owners of real property, and lessees of real property situated in the town of Shelter Island. So moved.
Second.
Discussion. We are making this change because as we were looking to change the beach sticker fees, the code section and what we have historically been doing, which is May 15th to September 15th is when beach stickers are enforced, we wanted to have that align with the town code. So that's why we're doing this, is just to make sure that they match up. We also realized that there was an error in the parking stickers definition. It was saying residents had to have these parking stickers that were paid for either on a weekly, monthly, or seasonal basis, when in fact it is non-residents who have to pay for these stickers, not residents. So that's why we're doing this. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried.
Whereas the town board of the town of Shelter Island previously adopted resolution number 2026-130, granting a license to venture out, care of Matt Stromberg, to conduct business on town property for the 2026 summer season. And whereas the town board now wishes to amend said resolution to include additional conditions regarding access to the water. And whereas the town board has reviewed the application and determined that the granting of the license as amended is in the best interest of the town of Shelter Island. Now therefore, be it resolved that resolution number 2026-130 is hereby amended to include an additional condition as set forth herein, and be it further resolved that Venture Out is hereby granted a license to operate the business as outlined in the application, subject to the following conditions. A, submission of the $500 application fee. B, the licensee provides to the town clerk proof of workers' compensation coverage or proof of exemption from workers' compensation. C, the business shall be contained in a 13.3 by 30-foot rectangle representing an area of 400 square feet, and a 30-foot marking will be established by the Shelter Island Highway Department along the railing to clarify, to clearly assist in designating the area. D, the location of the licensee's business is subject to review and adjustment by the Shelter Island Police Department and/or Shelter Island Highway Department. E, the proposed tent shall not be larger than 10 feet by 10 feet. F, the proposed storage locker shall be located within the 13.3 foot by 30 foot rectangle, 400 square feet. G, the business operation shall not exceed the period between May 1st and November 30th, 2026. H, the hours of operation cannot exceed 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. I, there shall be no parking spot guaranteed in connection with this application. J, the licensee shall not come off any cone off any empty parking spot at any time. K, the licensee is responsible for daily disposal of the trash created in connection with the operation of the business. L, the disposal of trash shall be in different receptacles than those provided by the town at the beaches. M, the license is subject to the execution of a commercial use license with the town. N, the licensee is permitted a 4-foot wide access path, runway, extending from the designated 13.3 foot by 30 foot business area to the water for the purpose of launching and retrieving equipment. Said access path shall be maintained in a safe and unobstructed condition at all times, shall not be used for the storage of equipment or materials, and shall not interfere with public use of the area, and be it further resolved that the town of Shelter Island reserves the right to revoke this permit at its discretion, and be it further resolved that the town supervisor or her designee is hereby authorized to sign the commercial use license between the town of Shelter Island and Venture Out. So moved. Second.
Discussion? I don't know if it got circulated to everyone over the weekend about extending that 4-foot wide access path to either 5 or 6 feet wide. Just, Matt was saying that with his arm span and just carrying boards back and forth, that 6 feet would be the safest, but 5 feet would be acceptable. So I just wanted to see if anyone wanted to modify.
Did you send an email over the weekend?
Yes, I just realized it to Shelby and myself.
Okay, I was like,
I just realized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the concern that with the boards, he's worried that slipping, I'm just trying to understand what he said in the email.
So then maybe
Yeah,
pulls up a towel at a beach chair right at the 4-foot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You
it was
whacked in the head
verbally
before.
granted last year an arm span wide, and his arm span is 6 feet. It was loosely verbally agreed to on a 5-foot wide runway, but it was never added in writing, and I just double checked and it wasn't there. So it doesn't leave him much room to transport anything to the water with no issues. Yeah, he figured 5 feet. Yeah, I guess he's requesting 5 feet, not 6 feet,
5 feet.
just for it to be
he's
safe.
fine. I don't want anybody getting whacked by the
Exactly.
board.
All right, so.
amending that to 5 feet.
Yes, I was going to say, with the amendment to end reading 5 feet, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas the term of Richard Holman as a member of the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board expired on December 31st, 2025, and whereas Mr. Holman has expressed willingness to continue to serve in said capacity, now therefore be it resolved that Richard Holman is hereby reappointed to serve as a member of the Emergency Medical Service Advisory Board for a term to expire on December 31, 2028. So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
whereas the term of Father Peter DeSantis as a member of the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board expired on December 31st, 2025, and whereas Father DeSantis has expressed willingness to continue to serve in said capacity, now therefore be it resolved that Father Peter DeSantis is hereby reappointed to serve as a member of the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board for a term to expire on December 31st, 2028. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas the term of Dr. Charles Einfeld as a member of the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board expired on December 31st, 2025, and whereas Dr. Einfeld has expressed willingness to continue to serve in said capacity, now therefore be it resolved that Dr. Charles Einfeld is hereby reappointed to serve as a member of the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board for a term to expire on December 31st, 2027. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Whereas the term of Jeannie Richardson as a member of the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board expired on December 31st, 2025, and whereas Ms. Richardson has expressed willingness to continue to serve in said capacity, now therefore be it resolved that Jeannie Richardson is hereby reappointed to serve as a member of the Emergency Medical Service Advisory Board for a term to expire on December 31st, 2027. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas the term of Cody Miller as a member of the Deer and Tick Committee expired on December 31, 2025, and whereas Ms. Miller has expressed willingness to continue to serve in said capacity. Now therefore be it resolved that Cody Miller is hereby reappointed to serve as a member of the Deer and Tick Committee for a term to expire on June 24, 2028. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas the term of Elizabeth Galley as a member of the Ferry Study Group expired on January 29, 2026, and whereas Ms. Galley has expressed willingness to continue to serve in said capacity, now therefore be resolved that Elizabeth Galley is hereby reappointed to serve as a member of the Ferry Study Group for a term to expire on January 29, 2029. So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
whereas the term of John Needham as a member of the Ferry Study Group expired on January 29th, 2026, and whereas Mr. Needham has expressed a willingness to continue to serve in said capacity, now therefore be it resolved that John Needham is hereby reappointed to serve as a member of the Ferry Study Group for a term to expire on January 29th, 2029. So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas Jennifer Maxon is hereby appointed to serve as a volunteer facilitator for the Senior Center Reading Program for the year of 2026, retroactive to March 27th, 2026. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Whereas a vacancy exists on the planning board, and whereas the town board has advertised for and interviewed applicants, now therefore be it resolved that Scott Matthews is hereby appointed to serve as a member of the planning board for a term to expire on December 31st, 2032. So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Oh.
I think Scott Matthews is a very good candidate, but he's also an architect by background, and we already have 2 architects on the planning board. So I would prefer to see more diversity in the appointments. So for that reason alone, I will probably vote no on this.
Further discussion. Scott Matthews technically is a lighting architect, not a marble building architect, very specific discipline, and also is more of an architectural consultant. So it is a different skill set and can be very beneficial to the discussion on the panel. So for those reasons, and the fact that it adds a lot of diversity to the planning board, I will probably vote yes for this.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I think I have similar feelings as Meg, and I would love to see, I think he's a very qualified candidate. I would love to see someone involved with a different trade or with coming to with a different point of view or skill set. Skill set maybe is important.
If there's no further discussion, I'll do a roll call vote. Myself, yes. Meg?
No.
Ben?
Yes.
Albert?
Yes.
Liz?
No.
Motion carries.
Yes. Resolved that the town board hereby appoints Donna Cass as Senior Shopping Assistance Program Coordinator, and be it further resolved that Donna Cass shall receive a stipend in the amount of $2,600 for the performance of these duties, and that said stipend shall be retroactive to January 1, 2026. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Resolved that the town supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to execute an agreement between the town of Shelter Island and Nelson Pope and Voorhees LLC for the housing needs assessment for the town of Shelter Island. So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Is the payment for this assessment, needs assessment, is that coming out of the community housing fund?
It is partially coming out. I can
Go ahead,
answer this
Catherine.
one. So it's going to partially come out of the housing fund, but we actually applied for a grant last cycle that will cover a little over half of it. So this will be coming out of both the housing fund, and there was a grant applied for especially for this project.
When is the grant supposed to be available?
It is available
If it is,
now, and we kind of need to spend it. So it was from the last.
So it was awarded.
Yeah, it's already been awarded.
Community
Okay.
Development Block
Yeah,
Grant.
it's a block grant that we applied for last cycle that was available for this planning purpose.
okay.
Yeah, so there was, I believe it was for $35,000 that we got the block grant. But in reviewing the proposals that we got, Brand, the current chair, decided that he wanted to add on more public engagement sessions, so it brought the price up a little bit, and so that'll be coming from the Community Housing Fund.
Okay, all right, thank you.
That's it for discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Liz is up next.
This is,
Yeah. Yeah, I got confused there. Resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to execute the letter of engagement between the town of Shelter Island and PFK O'Connor Davies LLP concerning the nature and scope of the audit services being provided to the town for the fiscal years ending December 31st, 2025 and 2026, as per the agreement. So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah.
We got the audit for 2024
Mm-hmm.
from them. Did we receive the kind of the follow-up, the internal control letter,
Yeah, that
an assessment of the towns?
it should have been in your folder with the
Yeah.
audited financial statements.
I was just, like, I literally just picked it up.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
it's
I didn't,
probably in there waiting for you.
Yeah, there's three things in there.
in my folder, Shelby, thank you.
Audited financial statements, there's the report to those in charge of governance, and then there's also the Yellow Book report, which is a consolidated federal report for any grants that we get.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
It's me, right?
Yes.
Resolved that the following 2026 budget modification is hereby approved. $2,504.48 increase to the DA 2680 Insurance Recovery and Revenue Account to be funded by the reimbursement check from NYMER for claim TSHI 2026-001-001, and a $2,504.48 increase to the DA 5130-446 Highway Machine Repairs Expense Account. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Resolved that the town board hereby establishes the following schedule of fees for parking permits pursuant to section 126-8.3D of the Town Code of the Town of Shelter Island. A, resident permits shall be issued at no charge for any motor vehicle or motorcycle that is registered to an address within the Town of Shelter Island or registered or leased to an owner of real property located within the Town of Shelter Island. B, non-resident permits shall be subject to the following parking permit fees per vehicle. 1, daily permit fee, $35 per day. 2, weekly permit, $90, valid for 7 consecutive days. 3, monthly permit, $170, valid for 31 consecutive days. 4, seasonal permit, $325, valid from May 15th to September 15th. So moved.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, opposed.
resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to expend the sum of $3,900 from the IT computer maintenance general ledger account A1680.476 to CAI Technologies, 11 Pleasant Street, Littleton, New Hampshire, 03561, for the web GIS support for June 1st, 2026 to May 31, 2027. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to issue a refund in the amount of $75 to Kathleen Lynch, 14 Country Club Drive, from the 2026 A20508 boat storage revenue code for the overpayment of a boat storage application. So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
resolved that the following 2026 budget transfers are hereby approved. $2,000 from A6777.148 senior center drivers for a new bus to A6777.147 senior center part-time clerk to reflect additional assistance needed for seniors in programming. $2,600 from A6778.101 senior shopping assistance driver number 1 to A6778.103 senior shopping Assistance Program Coordinator number 2 to reflect growth in the program and greater need for coordinating, and $1,100 from a 1220.102 Supervisor Administrative Assistant to a 1220.107 Supervisor Overtime to cover the training of the new account clerk. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Resolve the 2026 general claims number 422 through 554 in the amount of $137,988.67, and 2026 highway claims number 53 through 61 in the amount of $6,806.70 are hereby approved for payment as audited, and the supervisor and/or any town board member is hereby authorized and directed to sign the approval for payment of the same. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, we will adjourn the regular part of the meeting and move into public hearings. And the first one is Kyle and Thomas Walsh. Shelby?
On the 6th day of April 2026 at the Shelter Island Town Hall at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter, prevailing time on the application of Kyle and Thomas Walsh for permission to install a mooring at a location designated as latitude 41.09915 degrees north and longitude 72.34029 degrees west.
Does anyone want to do the report for WMAC? Are there the liaisons or?
The vote was 6-0 to approve. The only question was the question, who owned the house and who was the mooring? I don't know if there was any clarity on that. Shelby?
I believe it's Thomas Walsh is the father, and then Kyle's his son. So Thomas is the owner.
Mooring holder
But then they are both listed on the boat registration.
on the boat registration. Yeah, it was a 6-0 to approve, you know.
We'll open it up to the public. There being no public, we will close that public hearing. Just a point of reference for the public is we do have 4 mooring applications on here. And generally, if the Water Management Advisory Committee does not have any objections or modifications, we do pro forma for after closing all of the public hearings, the resolutions to pass those, especially this time of year when people are looking to get their moorings in before the season starts. So we will have, if there's no objections or concerns on the town board's part, we will have resolutions to approve these 4 mooring applications at the end of the meeting. So I just wanted to get that out there so everyone understood. It's unusual that we will have a public hearing and then later in the meeting approve something that had a public hearing. Generally, it only happens for mooring applications that have no concerns, and also if there's something that has a really strict time pressure, and again, that would be for a permit application, not like wetlands, not for anything that requires discussion. So I saw something out there that we were going to pass. I think somebody said we were going to pass the irrigation code tonight. That would not happen because we know that there's a lot of people here for the irrigation code. So just wanted to toss that out there. All right, next. So that we're closing that motion to close that public hearing. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
The next one is Stephen Malia. At 6:00 p.m. or as soon thereafter, prevailing time on the application of Stephen Rosamilia for permission to relocate a mooring designated as C3636 to a location designated as latitude 41.06615 degrees north and longitude 72.36470 degrees west.
WMAC report.
The mooring's located in West Neck Bay, and it was a 5-0 vote to approve.
Anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this one?
6-0.
Okay.
Yeah.
There were some, but there were some too that were 5.
Yeah.
Some guys
That one was-
recused themselves from hearing.
I'll make a motion to close that public hearing. All in favor?
Uh,
The next one is Adam Ronzoni.
At 6:00 PM or as soon thereafter, prevailing time on the application of Adam Ronzoni for permission to relocate a mooring designated as W3559 to a location designated as latitude 41.05670 degrees north and longitude 72.35787 degrees west.
WMAC report.
To get over it.
No, go for it. I just blanked out my screen, sorry.
I have it as well.
Yeah, he was taking over a mooring that was forfeited by Mr. Conway in West Tech. And that vote was 5-0 to approve.
One abstention. I'll open that up to the public. Any public comment? I'll make a motion to close that. All in favor? The last of the mooring applications, Rudolph.
At 6:00 PM or as soon thereafter, prevailing time on the application of Steve and Cynthia Rudolph for permission to install a mooring at a location designated as latitude 41.08861 degrees north and longitude 72.32301 degrees west.
WMAC report.
This application was a request to take over someone else's mooring location. WMAC was asked to confirm that the previous permittee relinquished that location. And pending that confirmation, it was unanimously approved 6-0. And as of March 10th, 2026, town clerk confirmed that the mooring has not yet been relinquished. Has that
It
changed?
has been
Okay.
in writing, so.
6-0 approved.
I'll open that up to the public. Being no public comment, I'll make a motion to close that public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Public hearing.
Exactly.
Whatever.
What you said, yeah.
Okay, the next is public hearing on the Ingrid and Robert Fagan dock.
At 6:00 PM, or soon thereafter, prevailing time on the application of Ingrid and Robert Fagan, 1 Tar Kettle Road, to construct a staircase leading up to a 4-foot by 20-foot fixed catwalk, leading to a 4-foot by 50-foot ramp down to a 4-foot by 26-foot kayak launch, and install 2 ladders, revised plans submitted by Costello Marine, last revised December 3rd, 2025, and stamped New York State DEC approved on January 16th, 2026.
WMAC report.
It was a 2-2 vote, split vote on that. 1 abstention, 2-2 vote.
And then Teresa Mason, I thought I saw you online.
Good evening, Teresa Mason on behalf of the town. I reviewed the revised project plans and a reduced length of the dock is obviously a benefit to the wetlands and the coastal waters of the creek. The applicant is still proposing to use CCA, stringers and pilings. And we recommend against doing so because those chemicals can leach into the environment, into the water column, and settle into the sediments and cause adverse impacts to benthic life, marine benthic life, including polychaetes and burrowing animals such as scallops and things of that nature. This is particularly important because this is a very slow moving water body. There's very limited tidal flushing in this particular water body. So it is recommended against the CCA use, using some alternatives. There's a lot of alternatives now for the construction of docks without CCA. And then secondly, we're also recommending that the steps at the end of the dock be retractable so that they're not out in the water during storm events, that they can become storm debris. And then also it would prevent sediments from resuspending when the water currents come through there, which could also adversely impact marine life by causing turbidity, reduced light penetration. That all impacts the marine organisms of particular concern, are like subaquatic vegetation like eelgrass, widgeon grass, things of that nature, which are critical for this marine ecosystem. Finally, we are just wanting clarification as to whether or not the applicant is proposing to use utilities, electric, water, along the dock. And if so, we do recommend against lighting at the end of the dock because that can impact circadian rhythms for marine animals and other wildlife.
Great, thank you, Teresa. Do we have anyone here on behalf of the applicant who wishes to speak? Yes. If you just state your name for the record.
Sure, it's in my letter, so. My name is Robert Fagan. I am the applicant. I'm a year-round resident on Dickerson Creek, where I live on this waterway. And I look out my window every day and I see 4 docks. I see the town bulkhead across the creek, which I might add is made entirely of the CCA material that she's recommending against. There is a police boat that is moored. Fishing boats are regularly tied up. And there's often a random, unidentified boat stored there for weeks at a time. Recently, there has been a sailboat sitting there for the past month. Dickerson Creek is an active working waterway. I am simply asking for the same access to it that my neighbors already enjoy. And let me start with the law. The mooring code explicitly allows riparian property owners to have a dock in Dickerson Creek. My application was filed under the old dock code and must be evaluated under those rules, not the new dock code. That is not a technicality, it is fundamental fairness. The town hired an environmental analyst who you saw speak just now, and they reviewed the project. The DEC reviewed and both concluded that the dock at my property is appropriate and consistent with protecting the environment. The DEC issued a permit. I have cleared every legal and environmental hurdle this process requires. My proposed dock reaches 1.9 feet of water, deeper than each of the 3 comparable docks this board approved in recent years. The dock in West Neck Bay, approved in '23, reaches 0.3 feet of water. The dock in Menantic Creek, approved in '23, reaches 1.4 feet of water. And the dock in Chase Creek, approved in 2020, reaches 0.4 feet. On the objective merits, my application is stronger than all 3. Now I want to speak plainly about the opposition. The arguments against this application are not grounded in law, environmental science, or town policy. They are personal opinions, subjective judgments about how I should use my own waterfront property, offered by people who do not live on Dickerson Creek. They are not my neighbors. They do not look at this water every morning. They have no greater stake in this creek than any other resident of Shelter Island, and considerably less than I do as someone who actually lives there. The opposition suggests that because I can launch a kayak from the shore, I do not need a dock. By that logic, no one needs a dock. That argument has never been the standard this town applies, and it should not be applied selectively to my property. 4 docks stand visible from my home. The opposition argues that this dock would obstruct public uses of the creek, kayaking, fishing, shellfishing, shore walking. Yet they offer no evidence that a dock on my property would meaningfully interfere with any of these activities. These are assertions, not facts. Meanwhile, the town bulkhead directly across from me accommodates a police vessel, fishing boats, and stored watercraft on a daily basis. If this creek can absorb all of that activity, it can absorb 1 private residential dock. This board's responsibility is to apply the law equally and consistently to all applicants. I meet the legal standard. I have environmental approval. I have precedent on my side. I live here. I am asking for nothing more than what this town has already granted to others. I respectfully ask the board to approve the application.
Thank you. Questions from the town board before I open it up to the public? I just have one question. I see in here, I don't see a request for utilities on the dock. That's correct, right? No water, no electricity?
No.
No lighting?
No.
All right, thank you. I just want to clarify that. One of the questions that I had is that as you go around the island for docks, so that people can go around between the high water mark and the low water mark, access to get across docks. And I don't see a mechanism for doing that. So I was just curious whether or not you would consider something like that.
Hi, Ingrid Fagan. I'm not sure, there's one other person, there's the Dickerson Creek, the land that has been purchased for the town, and then there's my neighbor, and then the docks, then we have a dock on the other side. So I think they could still go under it because it's high enough that they creep under. As I walk all around the island and other areas like Shorewood, and that's what we have to do. You have to, go under, but because it's raised so that we could have the grasses underneath, I think you can definitely sneak under. Yeah. That's what we do on the dock on the other side,
Also not in a heavily trafficked area. It's pretty squishy there.
Yeah.
True. In 7 years of living there, I have never seen anybody walk by, other than my neighbors.
I know during COVID, it became an issue because people were killing time by walking around the island and seeing.
Yeah, they didn't come by us because there's a deep water. You can't go around. You get to the bulkhead and then it's very, very deep. So there's no way to walk all the way around.
If there's no other questions from the board, I'll open it up to the public. Anyone in the physical audience? Anyone on Zoom?
I'll say something.
Okay, if you could just identify yourself for the record.
Yeah, Bert Waif, 9 North Ferry Road. I'm in favor of this dock, and particularly because the town has faced the issue in Daniel Lord Road of getting a letter from the DEC that you can't disturb the beach grass. And if you believe that the Fagans have riparian rights that they actually own to the title mark, then by denying this, you are leaving them in a position where they can't access the water at all because they would potentially hurt the grass. So I think this is a very modest addition to the waterfront there. And considering the constraints that would put upon it, I think it's fine. As far as, the environmental report of CCA, to be specific to this creek, would be onerous, I think, and set a precedent that I can't see how you would allow CCA anywhere else in town waters if you denied this applicant. And, furthermore, if you wanted to go further with environmental controls or et cetera, you might outlaw water jetting pilings in and demand that they go in with a hammer. So I think it's a little bit of a stretch to require a non-CCA, or it could be even actually ACQ. I don't know exactly what they are going to use, but the green lumber that's treated is used all around the island. So unless you're going to make an island-wide policy here, I can't see how you can single them out. Anyway, that's as I said, I'm in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Bert. Anyone else? The only last question I have is just the question about retractable steps and ladders, whether or not the applicant would consider that.
I don't know. I'm not saying I wouldn't consider it. I just feel like, originally I wanted a motorized boat dock and I compromised to a non-motorized dock. And then I wanted 90 feet. And then the board said, why don't you go back to the DEC and try for a 70 feet? So then I went for a 70 feet. And I feel like I'm trying to understand what you want and to give you what you want so that we can also not stuck in the muck up to here every time we go into our waters and disturb the waters. I don't know, taking it up and down and up and down. I know that what she was saying in her written report is that if the storm comes, that we could take it out. Maybe there's a way of just putting a little ladder in that has screws on it so that we could, we also don't want to lose our ladder during a storm, that maybe it's a removable. And we could just take it out whenever, because we saw what happened during the storms. We don't want our things to float away either. But that's not a deal. If that's the only thing you need, we'll make it happen. I am not opposed to that. Thank you.
Teresa.
Any other question?
Teresa.
A lot of the retractable stairs that I've seen on bulkheads and docks, they're like a hand crank. They're easy to lift in and out of the water, and it's just a hand crank. So that's something that could easily be done to be able to retract the stairs both during storm, when they're not in use for actual kayaking, and during storm events.
I'm happy to use a crankable. Whatever this is, whatever it is, I'll use it.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Make a motion to close this public hearing.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
One is closed. Next, we will open up the public hearing for is Mr. I want to say this right. Camilar?
Go ahead, just keep working on it.
Okay, say it for us.
Camilar.
Camilar, okay. All right.
Okay, at
Close.
6 o'clock PM or as soon thereafter prevailing time on the application of Christopher Camilar and Danielle Ferrer, 13 Dickerson Drive, to amend their existing wetlands permit to allow for the demolition of the existing walls to be rebuilt in the same place as per plan submitted by Jeffrey Butler dated November 17th, 2025.
Is there, we do have a report from Teresa Mason.
Good evening again, Teresa Mason for the record. Generally speaking, when we see construction for wetlands permits and the house gets demoed, we do recommend retreat from the wetlands. I know that this is a case where they had originally a wetlands permit from last year to build a second-story addition atop the existing first floor, and then a small addition within the vegetated buffer and regulated area, and then the rest of the construction outside of the regulated area. However, the house got demolished without the required authorization. Stop work order was issued. Now is an opportunity to explore whether or not we can get the property into compliance or into more compliant setbacks. And by doing so, you can increase the energy efficiency of the dwelling because you'd be putting it on a fully engineered basement versus the current slab. You could also get a conforming vegetated buffer and maximize the setbacks to the wetlands. And by reconfiguring and relocating the house further landward, you'd also get further horizontal separation between the septic system, or the IA system rather, and the wetlands. All those actions will provide better protection to those wetlands. In the event that you're willing to allow them to construct the dwelling on the existing foundation, I had outlined a host of recommendations on my advisory report from January, including expanding the vegetative buffer, getting a revised revegetation plan. So those are the recommendations, but it really we should really explore whether or not it's appropriate to have the applicant retreat from the wetlands, particularly in light of increased storm frequency, climate change, increased flood inundation associated with the changing climate. And I know that there is some concerns now that the New York State is going to increase the required base flood elevation requirements for FEMA. So those are all things that need to be considered as whether or not it's appropriate to request that the property owner explore alternatives where they increase the wetland setbacks or try and get into a more conforming location.
Thank you. We also have a CAC report somewhere.
I have it pulled up.
Oh, you do? Okay. Yeah, I could go over it.
Essentially, they just added to their original report. They said that the CAC reviewed the revised submission for the existing wetlands application and noted that the applicant has addressed all of their previous comments, and their previous comments were that we needed to identify the cast iron cover in the concrete slab and figure out what it was, correct an error in the site plan that had the setback listed incorrectly, and then it says do not use the existing well for irrigation. So those issues had been addressed, and they approved the revised application with a vote of 4-0, and they had previously approved the original application with a vote of 7-0. So that was the CAC.
Thank you. Is there anyone here? There is someone here from the applicant. Would you like to speak on this?
Christopher Camilar, I'm gonna go with Dave. I think all of you are pretty aware of what's happened here. When we were taking down the original walls in the demolition, we did by mistake take down 2 extra walls, actually 3 extra walls. We didn't believe we were gonna be able to support the upper building, the second floor. So we intended to build again on the exact same footprint that we had, the exact same plans we had, just new construction. And due to, I think, rulings that we have here that had to come back through wetlands again, which has now taken 7 months and almost $100,000 of extra money out of my pocket to have to rent with a brand new child and not have a house to live in. There certainly is no way that I could look and justify moving the house back with a foundation that's already existing, septic that's in place right now, the pool that's there. The cost would be outrageous. I'd probably have to look for a different place to live. So we're trying to do what got approved. We're not building a huge house. It's a simple house for me and my wife and my brand new child and my 3 other daughters to come and visit. I live here full time. Most of you know my face, so I really want to start construction. Please let me know if there's anything else we can do.
Are there questions from the board?
The planning board just
Sorry.
resubmitted, no, that's okay. They pretty much just said that their original letter stands. They didn't have anything to add to it, and that was a vote approving the application.
I think that's 6 done. If there's no questions from.
I can't read the measurements on this sheet. I don't know what these, is there somebody that can tell me the measurements?
Which page are you looking at?
Just the dimensions from the water, from the wetlands, from water to the front of the house.
The big one? Yeah.
The little one.
What's that?
The little one.
Yeah.
Is this the same one? Yeah. Yeah, it is.
So just say for the distance from the,
If you could just come up so you can definitely get picked up on the
The
mic.
distance from the water is the original distance that the house existing had. Nothing's being changed. We're actually going to be removing the patio that was out there and then building a buffer of natural grasses and stuff.
So the deck is removed. That's not going to be rebuilt?
Deck will be removed from the front. It's going to be natural soil.
The deck is removed now, but I see it in the plan.
Deck's gone now. It won't be rebuilt.
Won't be rebuilt. Okay. I took a measurement. I went out there and took a measurement. I went up 6 feet from the southern water side corner of the house and measured straight out to the top of the bank. I mean, the measurement calls 48 feet roughly here, but I measured 38 feet to the edge of the top of the bank.
We
So
had
you're set back.
Well, we had it measured by EN Consultants, and they came out and staked the whole.
I'm not questioning their measurements are better than mine. I'm saying the top of the bank, not the wetlands demarcation, which is down at the foot of the bank. And the bank is 5 feet, 6 feet,
Yeah.
there at least.
Yeah.
Kind of a sheer drop. So you're close. I mean, I had 38 feet, whatever, to the top of the bank, whatever it is. And the new code that's being proposed, the amendments to the wetlands code is asking people to move back 100 feet. But the current code that we operate under is asking nothing within 75 feet. And really, you're just a slab in that portion. You know, you have plenty of property, you can move the house back. I know you wouldn't want to, but you can.
Financially, and due to if you look at the septic plans and the well plans and the existing pool, everything would have to get moved. It becomes almost undoable.
There's room. I mean, it's doable. It's a bother, I understand that, but I'm looking at.
I think the difference that we actually looked at, it's pretty big complications to move the house back. But in any case, the request is, we were approved for this previously, 6 months ago.
I know that. I'm well aware of the situation. I'm well aware of the original
Which we agreed with.
application and the,
Yeah, and we're just
You know.
trying to move on. We're not looking to do anything incorrect. We're looking to protect the environment. I'm a fisherman. I love the water. I also went to Cornell for agriculture. I know a hell of a lot about it, and I know about what happens to the soil. We will protect that. We're looking to have the exact same footprint we had. It was approved again, just we're building out off the back a little bit.
but you tore it down. There's really no house there now. You tore everything down.
We tore down-
Basically, a little bit of there's some posts on the water side of the house. Basically, you took everything
Come
in.
down is the building department would have made us tear that down when we tried to put the second floor on, and we would have had to build it again. We did it out of order and without permission, but it would have had to be built tore down. The anchors were incorrect. Walls were made of 2x4s instead of 2x6s, and it's set at 14 inches instead of 16 inches. So
That was a surprise.
that was a surprise. I hadn't been in there.
You can't remove any sheetrock or any inside siding or inside the house to see the structure?
We had not until we did it. So we're trying to build something that's sturdy, that's not gonna fall down. We couldn't have built on top of that.
What I'm saying is, on your existing house, if you skinned an inside wall to look at it and see is it 2x4 or 2x6, you just said you didn't do that.
No.
That would have been the prudent thing to do, I think, right? I don't know. I mean,
That being said, Albert, we did also approve this with that stipulation. So it's, you know, blame goes both ways here.
they've always counted on you, Meg.
That's what I'm here for, Al.
Any questions from the board before I open it up to the public? Okay, anyone from the physical audience who wishes to speak on this application or this public hearing? Anyone on Zoom? We don't have any other comments or questions. Make a motion to close this public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have a local law amending Chapter 82 of the Irrigation Code.
I'm gonna go grab it or something.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, if I could get the signature, that would be helpful. Yes.
At 6:00 PM or as soon thereafter, prevailing time on the proposed local law entitled, "A Local Law Amending Chapter 82 Irrigation Regulations." The full text of this local law is available in the town clerk's office and online.
Someone who sat on the subcommittee, do you want to just talk a little bit about what we were trying to accomplish with this?
Oh, irrigation? Oh, yeah.
We're on irrigation.
Yeah, no, that's me.
Yes.
Take that bullet.
And just a bit, there are some seats being vacated. So anyone standing out in the hall or standing in the back, if you wish to find a seat, there's seats now.
All right, so for this is not intended to be like the comprehensive revision of the irrigation code. What we were looking at was just strictly the permitting requirements in the current irrigation code because there were issues that the building department was coming up against. So one of the things that kept happening is we had this line in here for temporary irrigation allowed for 150 days. And it was causing problems because there was no real clarity on when you needed to get a permit for it. Is it 150 consecutive days? But if you put it in December, you don't really need it until June. I mean, there were all these complications with it. So in looking at that, it started kind of the thought process of how can we clarify this and sort of help to make the process both enforceable and easily understood. There were also issues with the application for the grandfathered irrigation, where it required this like long page 3, having you note any changes to the system, but technically there shouldn't be any changes to the system unless you've gotten a permit for that. So there was just a whole bunch of things that weren't making sense. So we were trying to just clarify that in this proposed revision. We know there are other issues in the code, but we weren't looking to tackle those, mostly just the permitting. But there are a few things that I have noticed and I do recognize need to be addressed. One of them is in the turf irrigation, the drip irrigation requirements in 82-8. There is a very poorly written, it's D2, very poorly written requirement for near shore drip systems that sort of sounds like they require a cistern, but we're not sure if they're being used for turf irrigation or if it's just because it's drip and because it's in the near shore. So I feel like that is going to need to get clarified, but we don't have clarifying language in here. So if someone has any that they propose, definitely be open to that. Otherwise, what's listed in the code essentially stating that, drip irrigation systems with 1,500 emitters require a permit. There is no way for the building department to go out and say how many emitters are in your drip irrigation hose. Most of the time it's buried under mulch. What they're going to do is go and count the holes in the drip. I mean, that's what an emitter is. It's the hole in the drip line. So it's just not enforceable and it didn't make any sense. So we're trying to find a way to just clarify it and make it fair for everybody. And I know that it seems like a lot to require it, island-wide. If you're doing drip irrigation, get a permit. Some of the thought behind that was that our aquifer is a shared resource. So if everybody, if you're using it, it's part of a shared resource. And then there's the proposal that maybe it should only be that you need a permit in the nearshore overlay where saltwater intrusion isn't a concern. It's not necessarily as much of a concern in the center or at all in the center, but in the nearshore, it can be a concern. So those are sort of some of the things that we're trying to sort out with this. But initially the proposal is that it's really around drip irrigation. If you're putting in drip irrigation, you require a permit. The permit lasts for a year. That's kind of the big one. And then the other thing that we added in here is if you are an installer of sprinkler head turf irrigation, truly plumbed into the ground turf irrigation, that you need to provide the building department with a copy of your Suffolk County restricted plumber's license. Because that's a requirement in Suffolk County if you're installing turf irrigation. I know the language in this can get confusing because there's like 3 different types of irrigation systems that are discussed. One is the grandfathered turf irrigation system. So those are older systems that are well drawn. And those are for, the big green lawns where you have sprinkler heads that pop out and water the lawn. Then there are the newer irrigation systems that are run off of a cistern. So it's the same turf irrigation with the sprinkler heads, but instead of a well, it's running off a cistern. And then the other thing that we talk about in here is drip irrigation, which is typically running off of your well, and has far less strain on the well and the aquifer because it's such a slow draw that it really has no real impact, is what we've learned in our research. But this is what's currently being proposed.
Thank you for that overview. We have 3 pieces of correspondence I skipped over by accident. Oh, yeah.
Two.
I've got William King, Leah Lipsick, Stella Levitas. You don't have William King?
Came in by email today,
Maybe,
yesterday.
but you can take a look at the top to see. So if
Shelby
you,
may not have been included.
yes, yeah, so if
Yeah, I
you,
think it was just to the town board.
so if you could read those into the record, please.
It's an email from Bill King. The $50 proposed fee for a drip hose is a bad idea, and I would urge you to decline to implement it. There is little revenue likely to be received. It is one more hassle interrupting our shared goal of a bucolic life on Shelter Island. It creates one more rule that has to be administered and enforced, costing taxpayers money. While I am sure it is well-intentioned, I urge you and the town board to vote no. Respectfully yours, Bill King. And we have another email from Leah Lipsitch. To the town council, I seem to have misplaced the information on the hearing, but my main question is, what can possibly be the rationale for the fee for cisterns? You pay to have a cistern put in, you pay for the permit, you pay for the water deliveries, you pay for the drip lines to be put in, you pay for the maintenance of all of the above, and all while you are putting water back in the aquifer is a good thing. So why do these people have to pay anything? They should be paid, not the other way around. You have no rationale for charging these people except gouging money, so just raise the taxes if that is all you want. Nothing like being punished for doing a good thing for the environment. And then I gave you all a copy if you wanted to follow along, but it's a letter from Stella Levitas from the Heights Property Owners Corporation. And she says, Dear Town Board, I am submitting the following comments on behalf of the Shelter Island Heights Property Owners Corporation. We begin with general comments and follow with some specific comments and drafting considerations. General comments. It is unclear who participated on the irrigation working group as the Heights was asked to step down early in the process. Reference has been made to collecting feedback from landscapers and irrigation companies, but has West Neck Water been solicited, as the draft regulations do not reference any public water district restrictions, which may conflict with this draft. Are true, clay tennis courts require irrigation. We recommend that tennis courts be referenced in the same manner that turf and non-turf irrigation are referenced. Drafting considerations. Chapter 82-2A, new irrigation systems are referenced, and we recommend that the ongoing use of those systems are also highlighted. Chapter 82-5, C3, should the reference to soaker hose be deleted? C3, can a separate requirement of the irrigation system be a leak detection device / water shutoff? Example, meat flow or Moen. C5, we recommend it be made clearer that all receipts for fill-ups in the prior year be submitted, or a summary on the water carrier's letterhead. D1, we recommend that leak detection device / water shutoff be made part of the required design. D4, make it clear that the building department / Suffolk County Department of Health Services are the parties responsible for signing off on the backflow prevention device for public water, and that the backflow prevention device must be inspected annually by a certified party if on public water. E2, we recommend it be made clearer that all receipts for fill-ups in the prior year be submitted, or a summary on the water carrier's letterhead. Chapter 82-7, B2, add that cisterns should not be filled with water from public water systems. B1, do you want to delete the number of emitters? Chapter 82-9, how will this be enforced? Chapter 82-10E, how will this be enforced? Thank you for considering these comments. Should you need additional information, please contact me. Stella.
Thank you, Shelby. I have people who signed in to speak, so I was going to go down this list first, but then I also started to see some hands getting raised, so I'll add those to the list as we go along. So first on the list, I had Walter Richards.
Hello, Walter Richards. The subtle changes to the irrigation code proposed tonight with the ongoing changes reported by the board in the future will not only affect business and my employees, but it will also adversely affect homeowners who will be subject to the new requirements. To further exacerbate these changes, it has been communicated in a work session I attended that the town intends to stop the roughly 100 grandfathered irrigation, turf irrigation systems as well, and more legislation to come in the near future. I was a member of the Water Advisory Committee 20 years ago, and then moved on to the Irrigation Committee when turf irrigation was to be disallowed in the town. I supported this effort 100% because I believe that allowing more systems to be added could have the potential to threaten our water supply. I propose preserving the 120 existing systems based on science so as not to adversely affect the industry and the homeowners' property values would be impacted. The Irrigation Committee worked diligently to accomplish this goal, drafting our current law that works and makes sense. During the process, a firm was retained by the town to do a study on the impact of irrigation on Shelter Island to develop a science-based approach for the new code. The study revealed the following. 17.6 million gallons of fresh water a day are discharged into our bays and harbors. At the time of the report, the Heights property owners were permitted to discharge 19 million gallons per year into the bay from the wastewater treatment plant. Irrigation island-wide uses less than 1% of the total aquifer recharge. Here are some quotes from the study. No correlation was observed between elevated chloride levels and the location of permitted irrigation systems on the island. Quote, based on the available information, there is no evidence that the operation of permitted irrigation systems in accordance with the current legislation and the current irrigation regulations has adversely impacted groundwater resources on Shelter Island. Quote, with the total consumptive use at 1.2% of the total recharge, there are sufficient water resources available to support water supply demands of Shelter Island. With more than 98% of the annual recharge discharging to surface water bodies, significant landward movement of the saline groundwater is considered unlikely. Finally, the USGS monthly monitoring well levels are recorded and tracked. The science to support leaving irrigation alone reveals the lowest well level reading ever was in 1983. And the highest was in 2010, which caused flooding in the center area and prompted the town to pump fresh water off the island to try to lower the water table. This high reading in 2010 and subsequent pumping was at a time when there was the most amount of turf irrigation systems used on the island. All of this information revealed that irrigation was having little to no impact on the aquifer quality. The way I can best understand the changes proposed to the code are as follows. Number one, remove the emitters a nearshore system can have, therefore allowing 1,500 emitters instead of the original 250 emitter cap. I do not support this. Currently, you are permitted to have 1,500 emitters in the center and 250 emitters in the nearshore. This has worked and is completely reasonable and protects our aquifer. It encourages native plantings and drought-tolerant landscapes to help preserve our aquifer and the character of the island. Number two, it requires a person who is working on a pre-existing turf irrigation system or cistern to be a restricted plumber, a professional. I support this addition, which protects our water supply. The third change, require a permit for all drip systems island-wide. I do not support this. I do not see how hundreds of new permits can be processed in a timely fashion, which I do not think is fair to the building department. It will burden us as homeowners as well. Number four, I'm going to read this change. This is the one that Meg cited before because it's very confusing to me. It says in the near shore and peninsula overlay zone, a drip system shall require an irrigation permit and shall meet the following standards. Shall be equipped with a master valve, time clock, and moisture sensor. And number two, shall be fed only from a cistern as described for turf irrigation systems. except that if an owner can establish that the drip system uses less water than the grandfathered irrigation system it is replacing, the owner may obtain a permit to convert that drip system without a cistern. I do not support this. This means that any system installed in the near shore will require a cistern. Since there is only a definition in the code for grandfathered turf irrigation, it is unclear what a grandfathered irrigation system is. It is also unclear what standards make it less consumptive than before. This section of the code was designed to help homeowners with larger drip systems get them converted to grandfathered permit or be forced to install the cistern. Although I agree it was not well written at the time, the intent was for the transition period during 2013. This period is over, and I know of no drip systems with permits eligible for a grandfather clause. Therefore, this change tells me that everyone in the near shore is going to need a cistern, the way it's written. The last one, number 5, remove the 150-day temporary irrigation requirement. I support this change. Since the establishment of plants can take up to 3 growing seasons, I would suggest we require a temporary permit, and after 3 years, bring it into compliance with the existing code. Thank you for allowing me to present tonight. I know that the irrigation subcommittee and everyone on Shelter Island wants to feel good about our water supply. It is a frequent campaign platform and often in the local news media. My message here tonight is that we should feel good at where we stand with our water quantity on Shelter Island. We have a working code, we've stopped new turf irrigation, we have paid for science-based studies, the USGS has tested our well levels for years with no real concern. The town has adopted a fertilizer law to help keep the aquifer clean side by side with Suffolk County requirements. The New York State regulates pesticides on the island. Over 1/3 of the aquifer is preserved, sitting underneath forever open space land. The Water Advisory Committee does a wonderful job and continues to diligently oversee the water table level with a warning system in place should any concern arise. Moving forward, please add dry wells to promote aquifer recharge, where we could stand to gain 1 billion gallons instead of it running off into our bays and harbors. Please continue to purchase open space. Please let the ever-growing green movement in our industry change our practices, because we all want to make the island better. Finally, I'm happy to assist in this process if requested, and please do not act on this amendment without further review. Thank you.
Before you leave the podium, I just have one question for you. What was the study that you were referring to?
Leggett, Bashir, and Graham.
Okay, thank you.
And it was done in 2014, and it's called the Hydrologic Data Review and Elevations for Shelter Island, New York. It's searchable on the town website.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just so everybody knows. Thank you.
Walter, what you just read from, I got the MailChimp and, can you send, I got your MailChimp posting, but can you send that as well?
Absolutely. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list, I have Peter, I think it's Levinson. I'm not sure of the handwriting, sorry.
Yeah.
That handwriting. Good evening, thank you. So I,
State your name for the record.
Peter Levinson, I live at 23 Winthrop Road. It's a near shore property. And I was in front of the board in 2015, I believe when the original or the last irrigation law was considered and passed. And I am one of the 109 grandfathered irrigation systems on the island, and I continue to permit it. And I thought it would be helpful for me to speak on the modifications to the sprinkler law tonight, even though it doesn't specifically make changes, as I understand it, to the protocol that I have. So in referring to not being repetitive from what Walter said, I also looked very carefully in 2015 at the report that the town had commissioned. And it's an extraordinarily interesting report. I mean, just from a science perspective and something that I'd never think how you would you would understand what the water conditions are in relation to Shelter Island. And what it said was that there are 48 inches, and historically an average of 48 inches over the 40 years prior to the report, which was written in 14. And interestingly, I looked up since 14 to 25, 48 inches still is about what we get. In fact, in recent years, we've got more. And this is precipitation, so it includes both rainwater and snow. And noting that the snow is actually more valuable precipitation because it percolates slower. What's interesting about the report is that 48 inches over the landmass of Shelter Island, and I don't know what Walter's numbers, I believe my recollection of that report was that it's 10 billion gallons of water, half of which goes into the aquifer, half of which goes other places, mostly streams, bays, and creeks. So with that, it's pretty important to digest the science of our irrigation and our position and our precious resource. Based on that report, I recall it was 5%. I think it was 250 million gallons that we used. It's all broken down with how many showers and laundry and all kinds of stuff. And then they addressed the 109 irrigation. I think that they thought it would use 30,000 or 40,000 gallons per year, which was another 10 million gallons. But the bottom line was it's still a fraction of the 5 billion gallons that go into the aquifer. Interestingly, though, the report did not address what other irrigation was happening. So clearly there's additional gallons that are being used. I would say predominantly from the golf course and from many of the other sources. But if you double the amount that they estimated, it's still less than 10% of the billions of gallons that they estimated would go in the aquifer. So with that, I thought that it would be interesting to or important to just convey what my experience was over the 10 years with my personal nearshore irrigation system. I don't have a big lawn that I use it for, so most of the, and some of the lawn I don't irrigate, just a very small portion of it. I changed most of it to drip irrigation. I installed a computer internet-based clock so that I get notifications if it's a quarter of an inch of rain coming predicted or had already fallen. It tells the irrigation system to stop. I file my annual permit every year. I pay the required fees, and I submit the chloride tests every year. And I think the chloride test is which you have from me and the other 109, 120 irrigation systems is a great tool that you should look at and say, do we have a problem? The fact of the matter is my chloride tests have averaged over the last 5 years at 50 parts per million. I think I had 1 year when we just started that was, and I don't know, it was 99, but the average for the last 5 years is 50. Average over the 10 years I've been, or 9 years that I've been testing it for the town's has the records, it's 58 parts per million. And I test it personally over the year just to see what the trends are. And the bottom line is that it is, if anything, better today than it was in 2015. So there shouldn't be a law that's looking for a problem. I mean, we have to understand the problem. And the problems, I think, are parts of the island that really are difficult, and that's Silver Beach for sure, the Rams, and they're difficult because of the geological condition of that. In those areas, in some places, according to the report, the freshwater lens is 10 to 20 feet above the surface. There is no law that you're going to pass that's going to help those areas. It has to do with the nature of their geology. So then a word about vegetation and runoff. And the piece that's missed about about irrigation and vegetated areas is that we have, according to the report, half the water that we get runs off, and is something that Walter talked to about. Vegetation helps. Irrigated vegetation helps. The root system of plants help the water get to the aquifer. That's a really important piece of this. Restricting irrigation to the point where landscaping dies back and soils compact or actually reduce the total recharge of the aquifer. And what else do I have to say? I have one more page. Yeah, so I think the mandate of the board is to try to mitigate the amount of runoff we have. And what's odd to me is a lot of the near shore regulations. I mean, one in particular that I was reading this afternoon was that the rainwater cisterns in the near shore overlay are limited to 10% of the permeable land. And the inbound ones are 15. That makes no sense. I mean, the whole point is to reduce the runoff. So why do you have something that's contrary to logic? So I do appreciate all the the study that you're doing and the concern you have for something that's dear and important to all of us. But really, my point is to try to use as much science as you can to make these regulations. And I appreciate your time and your attention to this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fred Hyatt?
Just going to be quick. Fred Hyatt, Iconic Banking. I too was on the irrigation committee. I think it started in 2011. Anyway, I support the code as it is. One of the things the building department has a lot of trouble with is enforcement. They don't have enough people. I don't know how this is going to make their job any easier. We currently have, in 2021, landscapers were added to the contractor's license law. As far as I know, I mean, there's dozens of contractors here every day that aren't licensed down. So the building department can't even keep up with that. So I don't even know how they're going to keep up with this. So I just urge you to think about that and think about all of us who are complying with that law, and think about all the people that come here every day that aren't, and they're adding irrigation without. So if we don't even know who they are, how are we going to do this? That's all. Thanks.
Joel Carey?
Hello, my name is Joel Carey. I'm here representing Lynch's Irrigation. I just want to go on record saying I support Mr. Richards and Mr. Levinson on what they spoke about. I think everything they said is correct. I think adding the burden of another drip system, every single irrigation system we work on has drip, which means you're going to double the amount of permits that you're going to need to go through. And I think drip is the most efficient use of water. So I think that would be extra burden to the people who are on Shelter Island. And as mentioned in the reports, I think that the systems are the way they are is good.
Thank you. Christian Clark?
How's it going? It's Christian Clark. Yeah, I'm just kind of going to second what these guys said. I think adding more regulation to it is going to make it more difficult for the town. As somebody who plants trees and knows establishment, I definitely think we need to make edits about how long the system is good for. And I think solve would be the near shore overlay needs a permit and the rest of the island does not. Just so you guys are aware of what's going on. And then the rest in the center doesn't really seem to have a problem. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Thank you. Vicky Cardero?
Walter pretty much covered what I was going to bring up, which is the confusing language.
Just state your name for the record.
Vicky Cardero. On the drip irrigation, with near shore overlay, so it's crossed out, it used to be 250, so now the language is that everybody gets 1,500. There are certain areas we know are really bad, but the table has discussed shore, certain areas of Shorewood, but Silver Beach, et cetera. I think that extending it to at least 3 growing seasons is a very good idea. With regards to the near shore overlay, if it's not in a sensitive water table area, the old of 250 emitters, which is 200 linear feet, you're saying how you can't count it, but it's the emitter is every 12 inches. So you have the drip irrigation, those clay colored pipes, it's 250 linear feet of that pipe. And it's 0.9 gallons per hour, but you can just kind of round it off to a gallon an hour. But in the near shore where it's not sensitive, I mean, when I plant probably 75% natives, and in these historic droughts and heat that we've had, last summer we got a bit of a break, but the previous 2 summers was unbearable. And even native plants that are established, if they are getting no water, water is life, with those temperatures and absolutely no water, they will die if it's 5-6 weeks of no rain, which we've had, consistently going to July and August. And if you don't water them just once a week, those plants will die. And then that is preventing your runoff and all of that. That's why we have these plants, right? So I think that certain areas, it should really be by location, and that certain near shore overlay should be entitled to 1,500 linear feet of drip irrigation. Another thing, like I have one employee that goes around when we're getting rain, like you get the predictions, there's 2-3 days of rain. I have one guy that goes around and shuts off all of our timers every single period of rain, because the thing that drives me crazy is you're driving around and you see water blowing on while it's raining. So we shut it off and we don't turn it on. If you get an inch of rain, you don't turn it on for a week. That's plenty of water for that period. So try to be very mindful. Is this language saying that if you're in the near shore and you have the 1,500 emitters, only if you had a grandfather? This is what's confusing. I don't understand that.
Right. So what I would like to do is eliminate 82-8D2, which is that very confusing sentence that drip irrigation shall be fed only from a cistern. I like to just delete that line because it doesn't make any sense, right?
Okay.
And
And also proving if that is more efficient than the old grandfathered.
Right.
That's impossible.
we know it is by its nature more efficient.
Right.
So, yeah, I would like to, I was gonna say it's
Get rid
confusing
of
because I
that.
read it differently. but-
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted clarification on that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I had next, Teresa Mason, our environmental consultant. Did you want to speak on this code? I had gotten an email.
Good
that you might-
afternoon. I had met with Meg and I had also met with Reed regarding the code. They had asked my opinion on some code amendments, and I do feel that in some cases, particularly where there's shallow water table, it might be worth it considering how you can get reduced water usage, whether through drip irrigation, conversion to drip irrigation, or the conversion to cisterns. And then also the question about permitting. Generally speaking, the standards that I've seen used industry-wide is 85% survivability of plantings for 2 years after 2-year period. So if you have a permit for a minimum of 2 years, possibly 3, I think that's more in line with industry standards for survivability on plant materials. And then with respect to the question about preserving those areas where the water table is shallow and the lens is very shallow, one could argue that you could set aside a small portion of your water quality funding to convert those older systems, those systems that are not as efficient, to newer systems. You can make that argument. You're trying to protect these shallow groundwater table areas for the purposes of drinking water, for saltwater, preventing saltwater intrusion. There is that argument to be made, and you can say, all right, we can afford to do 2 of these a year. This is first come, first serve, and you have priority areas. These are the 3 priority areas where we want to get those done first. And then you can work your way through that as a potential way to proceed on getting to those more efficient systems. But with respect to the code, the only thing that I would really have to say is probably a 2 to 3 year permitting for that temporary irrigation, because it is generally industry standards for the 85% survivability for 2 years.
Great, thank you. Jay Card? You're on mute.
How's that?
Now we can hear you.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I'm traveling and can't be there in person. I just wanted to really bring up one point. Everybody touched on such great points there, but technology has changed quite a bit since we started the irrigation ordinance. And when we talk about saltwater intrusion, the one thing that's important is the volume and rate in which we pull water to actually pull the saltwater lens up. And that's where we come into trouble. So a lot of the systems now can be fine-tuned, so you could pull for a very short amount of time, have a rest period, and then have them run multiple cycles through a course of the day or whatever period you need based on your plant material, which wasn't available until really recently. So in very sensitive areas, you do have the ability to pull some water without jeopardizing your water source. So just something to consider on going forward on how we can actually water more effectively and everybody can protect, because this isn't only just an irrigation issue, it's everybody that's pulling water out of the aquifer for whatever reason they're pulling the water from. And I'll look forward to being at the next meeting in person. Sorry.
Great. Thank you. I have run out of people on my sign-up sheet and raised hands. Anyone in the physical audience who wishes to speak on this? Come on up.
Very brief, Robert Fagan, 25 Winthrop Road. Just like to second forcefully Mr. Levinson and Mr. Rich's comments. I think let the science guide you. It seems pretty clear. And I think Mr. Rich's point about just please don't pour more bureaucracy on all of us is something you would all feel very relieved about.
Thank you. Anyone else in the physical audience? Anyone else on Zoom? Pam?
Yeah, may I just ask why there doesn't seem to be anything written in this code about West Neck Water not permitting irrigation at all in that district? It seems to just be a missing piece. I'm not quite understand. And they're supposed to be eliminating their irrigation wells in that district as well. I don't know if that's happened. I did notice, I did find a map that shows irrigation systems that are grandfathered and old cisterns that are in, and perhaps that's worth looking at and seeing what's the status of those cisterns that are existing on these grandfathered irrigation systems, because it seems to me that's probably your number one difficulty. And I agree that, seems to be like a bit of more research needs to be done on the purpose and the intent of this law and how on earth you're going to enforce it. It seems like an impossibility in my opinion, but I think that that's all worth looking into a little further. With the West Neck Water, I think it should be mentioned in this legislation. It's part of their rules and regulations in that district. And as a town-owned entity, I think it's important that it's mentioned here. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? I have a question for the public. Sure.
So one of the reasons why this came up is because we get a tremendous amount of complaints from the public about drip irrigation. We get neighbors calling because their neighbor has drip irrigation and they want to know if it's allowed or if it's not allowed. And then the building department ends up having to get in their car, go out, and they're looking at it and they're like, well, I can't tell if that's 250 emitters or not. It's buried, it's under the mulch. I don't know how far it goes. I don't know what plants it's supposed to be targeting. I don't know how long it's been here. So one of the reasons for requiring the permitting is because when we get those calls, we'll already have, and it's pretty much an administrative permit where you come in with a hand-drawn map of where the irrigation is going, what it's for. And so when the neighbors call, the building department could say they have a permit for it. We know where it is. We know who to contact if something's going wrong with it. One of the things that can sometimes happen with drip irrigation, these guys can correct me, is that, rodents eat it, it pops, it starts shooting water everywhere, and then a neighbor calls really upset. And so then they call the building department. The building department has to figure out who's the contact for the property, who's the installer, who's managing it. And it actually takes a tremendous amount of building department time to follow up on all of these calls. So part of the thought was that it would actually make it easier for the building department if we had the permitting process where you're like, hey, look, I put irrigation in here, here, and here today. These are the maps. These are the properties. It's a 3-year permit. Something like that. That way, the building department, when they get a call, they can say, yes, we have a record of that, it's permitted. Or no, it's not, we'll come and check, we'll see what's going on. But that was part of the building department's perspective. So the idea on eliminating the number of emitters as a specific target for the legislation was because we really there's no way once it's in the ground to know how many emitters or even how many feet you've installed. So if you guys have a better suggestion on how to do it, let us know. We were trying to simplify the process by having you say, hey, we're putting drip in here. Here's our permit request. 3 years from now, we'll send you a letter saying, hey, how your planning's doing. Do you want to renew or are you good? You want to turn it off? So that was kind of like the objective. And that's why we were trying to take the emitters out because it's just not enforceable. It's just chasing your tail. But if anybody has a suggestion on how to fix that, I'd love to hear it. I'm all ears.
Sounds like the issue is that there's leaks coming and neighbors are worried about the wastage of water, is that right?
Yeah, and I think that because drip irrigation tends to be more visible than some of the other types of irrigation, typically when you have the turf irrigation, it's on a lawn behind a hedge and people don't really see it as much. And so it's one of those things where it's like, I see irrigation, do they have a permit or is it the right length? And you get a lot of nervous neighbors, especially in areas where there is sensitive aquifers like Silver Beach or Montclair or, other places like that. And so then it just tends to be one of the biggest complaints we get at the building department. And it's one that's very hard to follow up on and enforce and follow through with because the code as it's written, we don't know if it's 250 emitters or 300 or,
There is new technology that allows you to push.
Just come up just so you can get
sorry.
picked up on the microphone. And then next up, CJ Card, maybe you're answering this question as well.
Joel Carey again, sorry, Lynch's Irrigation. There's new technology that you can put on the water main line that you can put a device that if there's a leak on the irrigation system, it's notified and your cistern, the water line shut off. Like that would be the easiest thing, make that a mandatory thing for cisterns and then you won't have leaks. If you get notified on your phone or you'll get a notification on your irrigation clock, that'll tell you there's a leak, we've shut it off, here's where it is, you need to go fix it. I think that's probably the easiest solution for that.
Thank you. Jay, were you answering this question or did I miss your hand was still raised?
Yeah, no, I was trying to answer it. He's 100% correct on that. And I think most homeowners get an insurance rebate if they install one of those devices. So that's a plus. Secondly, drip irrigation is probably 90% efficient over top of people watering by hand, watering with sprinklers. So the efficiency of drip is huge. And we're focused, I believe, on permits just for the near shore, which are the most vulnerable areas. So I think that cuts a lot of the load down on the permitting and the work of the building department. So I think if we focus on the near shore, I think it focuses on the most fragile part of the island that we have right now. That's all I got.
And that was J Card for the record. Thank you. Did you raise your hand again?
Oh, I was just, Jay kind of covered it, but I was just going to say that I think it's actually the opposite, that rotary heads are much more visible. You hear them, people hear them come on in the middle of the night, you see them when you're driving around. Drip is invisible because as you mentioned, it's also often covered with mulch, so it's much harder to know exactly and regulate and all that. But in terms of the technology that Joel just mentioned, that he just referenced for cisterns, but it seems much more important if it's a timer connected to a well, because those people are paying for the water in the cisterns or have collected 10% or whatever they're allowed. But for people drawing drip from the well, that's where it's really key if there is, and we get calls all the time. We've got a little geyser here, the thing popped off or the rodent ate through it or whatever, so we run over and repair it. That's just part of the nature of that particular material, that product. It does happen. Just, you try and repair it as quickly as you can. But it does seem to have, if you had that device on your water main when it's from the well, and not as much as important as a cistern, that's our water, not the cistern water. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I have one more thing on the building department. I would be curious to know, or if it would be good for you, Walter Richards for the record, it would be good for you to know. I don't know how they keep track of complaints, if they have a form, but it would be interesting to know exactly, how big the problem of the complaints is. And if it's just simply going and asking the landscaper to help measure it out, could tell the complainant that they're in compliance. Ma'am, they're in compliance, they have the right amount of emitters, or, oh, no, they're not. Here's your summons. So that might make the problem seem a little smaller if we find out how many of these calls we're actually getting.
I'll ask him, because I'm curious too. All right, anyone else? Anyone on Zoom? All right, if there's no other public comment, I would suggest that we close this public hearing. I have it on the work session for tomorrow to talk about a path forward.
Okay. And we're gonna close because we're assuming we're gonna make more changes to the code, that
Yes.
then get re-noticed and reheard,
Yes.
just so everybody's
Yes.
clear.
Yes, exactly.
We're
Yes.
not closing the vote, guys.
Correct.
No, so
Correct.
tomorrow we would say, what do we want to do to go forward with this? Do we send it back to subcommittee? Do we keep it at the town board level? So, okay.
Yeah.
I would second
that.
Good
All
to
right.
think about.
Okay. All in favor of closing?
Aye.
The next public hearing, number 8 out of 10, is the increase to the senior property tax exemption resolution. And for those of you, okay, actually, we'll just take a 2-minute break to let those who are leaving to go ahead and leave.
We have a little. That was sort of the quick too.
I don't mind. You only get my name here. I have so much. I said, whatever the ends, not even by next week, I'll be installed. I told my sisters I was going to Mr. King and bring it here for everybody. I was like, that's not.
I'm still from here about the first time, so.
Do you want this one? He's at my mom, so I just sent it all there.
If somebody goes to like Home Depot and buys irrigation hose and installs it, if I needed things, remember that? All irrigation, like a soaker hose, soak hose. Even if they're not installed by, by contractors.
I have no problem not regulating solar hose at all, and just not requiring a permit.
It's even hard to keep track of.
There's conflict in the community about that.
It's tough.
Yeah, I
have them in my pocket.
I also understand why you guys are concerned about it, we're being on an island.
It's all gone.
It's really gone.
It's like a lollipop. Oh, yeah, this is all that's that. We have our baskets hiding. It's gone. I'm not, there's nothing that's very good. There's like a lone.
The sad candies left behind.
Except nobody lost. The generic lollipops. Flavors, yeah.
Won't be hearing you go.
What flavor that color plastic could be.
Exactly.
Yes. It's like sesame and lollipop flavor. I don't know, but we got
I
it.
don't know if we'll keep it open tonight. I don't know. We'll just keep it open.
Oh, Amber got the best.
Before I get too it open.
Did not.
That's what it's hard to get.
Maybe she knows how to read.
Where?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I'm looking for a word.
I have for protein bars.
Yeah.
Candy, candy.
Energy.
I know.
Thank you.
I'm good, thank you, ma'am. I have that.
He came earlier and I told him he was a problem.
Sense.
I'm sure he'll be back. He's whatever. Unfair.
Are we gonna do the moorings after? You want me to come back? Is that from? You got it?
I don't see any problems so far.
That's very good. Oh, that's great. He said he has nothing else to do. Could find something else. I think like it's like a yeah, it's not like that church. Right. In and out.
We could get,
I'm sorry?
if we could get our town board members back, we could.
Yes.
I guess we don't have Meg yet.
Somebody saw me drop one on the bed.
Like without.
Someone drop it.
Basket's over there if you need.
Very short term.
Nice to meet
Grab Benjamin as you pass by him.
Grab Benjamin?
Yeah.
Come on. What basketball you watched tonight, right? Just.
Right. This is the final.
I'm gonna be here all night.
Is that right? All right, all right.
It's Mr. Howard.
Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly. Okay. I'll just.
Candy break is over.
Yes, bathroom break is over. Okay, so we're going to open the public hearing on increasing the senior property tax exemption.
At 6:00 PM or as soon thereafter, prevailing time on the proposed resolution to increase the senior property tax exemption percentage up to 65% based on a sliding scale pursuant to real property tax law, section 467.
I'll just start off with a little summary on this. So the assessor's office looked at what the implications would be, and they had pulled up they put together a slide that showed, and actually maybe I can share this if I can still find it. Of course, I had it open and it won't let me open. But basically, we have a senior tax exemption that allows for 50% up to, I think it's like 50,000. Just see if I can get this to restart again. Yeah, I know. It was open and then it just closed.
Just do what you're supposed to do.
There we go. Okay. All right, let me. Okay, there we go. So the current is up to 50,000. You get a 50% exemption on your assessed value. The new legislation that we're looking at is if your income limit drops below 40, or up to 47,000, you can get 65%, and 60% at the next 1,000, 55% at the next 1,000. So it's just adding a few more layers. In looking at the existing seniors who qualify for this exemption, a guesstimate was made that all of them, if they're at 50,000, would be below 47,000. So that would equate to, let me just find my numbers here, that an additional $21 million, a little bit more, would be eligible for this additional exemption from the tax. And that would calculate to a tax redistribution, and this is only town taxes, of $42,180, which would get redistributed back to the entire tax base, which would equate to an average home price on Shelter Island is $1,621,000, and that would cost that average house $10.52 more in tax if this gets passed, and that would be each year, or it would go up as taxes went up. And there's currently 80 recipients of this exemption. So that is the overview of what the impact would be.
80?
Yes.
80 people are taking
Yes.
it now?
Yes, 80 people are eligible. Which is up on the screen.
Eligible or taking it?
They were taking it. And the number that I put out, the 21 million, doesn't include what's already being redistributed in taxes. So just having that little summary, I open it up to the public. There's no one in the physical audience. Anyone on Zoom who wishes to speak to this?
Okay.
Okay, I will make a motion to close that public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, on the next one, we have two public hearings left for this evening. One is a local law on taxation exempting volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers. So Liz is recusing herself on that because she is married to a firefighter, and so she needs to. I am recusing myself because I am waiting for the ethics board to wade through my relationship with the fire district as treasurer. I'm not involved with the fire department or the ladies auxiliary, but until the ethics board gives me a final ruling, I've been recusing myself on anything that has to do with all three of those organizations. So I'm going to step away and turn the meeting over to the public hearing over to you. I don't know if you want to, if you need to, you can, I think, there's some stuff on here, so if you want, that works, if you want to share that screen. And then Liz is also recusing herself from the Sylvester Manor, so she gets to leave for the evening.
Okay. Have fun, guys.
And then I'll take my phone and I'll come back. All right. You get to read it.
At 6:00 PM or as soon thereafter prevailing time on the proposed local law entitled, a local law amending Chapter 115 taxation, Article 6 exemption for volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers. Full text is available on the town website and at the town clerk's office.
All right. So this specific exemption is for volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers. Currently, as it stands, we've adopted a 5-year minimum in order to qualify for the exemption. What this would do is reduce that to a 2-year minimum. So you'd have to be a volunteer for 2 full years before you could qualify for the exemption. The redistributed cost of this is 35 cents per household with an assessed value of 1.6 million. We're assuming that there's about 5 volunteers added a year
possibly 5 people between the fire department and the ambulance may qualify for this exemption. We're hoping that it would help with retention of firefighters and ambulance. And so that's what this one is about. Anybody from the public want to comment on it or have any questions? Don't see anybody in the physical audience. And I don't see anybody on Zoom. So going once, going twice. I'll make a motion to close this hearing.
So small.
All in favor? All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. All right. So we'll close this and we'll move on to Sylvester Manor. We can get Amber back in here. I'll text her, or Federico can grab her. All right, that was quick. I was gonna say, that was extremely fast. I try to be efficient. Okay.
You know, argue over 35 cents.
Okay, all right, so next we will open up, we'll open up the hearing for Sylvester Manor site plan. I wanted to just start off with the,
My refusal?
yes, I don't know if you want to speak to it or you want me to speak to it. I had at the last public hearing thought that based upon prior town attorney advice a number of years ago, that if you didn't have a relationship with an organization or a company business, whatever, after a year, you could recuse yourself. But the ethics board picked it up and given Benjamin's past substantial connections to Sylvester Manor, thought it best that he does recuse himself.
Yes.
You are free. You can fly away.
Okay, thank you. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you. So, number 3. Yes, number 3. That's right, we don't read it because this is a continuation. So we covered refusal. Teresa.
Just so I'm clear, so only 3 town board members are participating on
Yes.
this application now?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, sorry, didn't fill you in on that earlier. Teresa Mason had updated her report. So Teresa, if you'd like to listen on that.
Good evening, Teresa Mason, again for the record. I just wanted to say that we received the revised documents the day of the public hearing, and we had you had requested that I provide my comments in writing based on the testimony I provided at the public hearing. And based on that, I said that the project plans were generally compliant with the provisions for natural features and environmental concerns and screening and landscaping. However, prior to final conditional approval, it was recommended that we get final grading and drainage plans. And if they were going to do any additional plantings around the around the manor, that they would provide revised landscape plans. Presently, they're only proposing, or they only indicated that they were going to transplant and then reinstall the climbing roses. But if any additional plantings were to be provided, we had recommended a revegetation plan. Also, we had recommended a screening of the mechanical equipment with a planting plan for that. But generally speaking, they were compliant with the other provisions of the code. We just had some concerns with respect to the grading for the ADA compliant parking because there's a 2 to 4 foot grade change there, and that's close to the wetlands. But that can be submitted as a condition of approval as part of your requirement.
Great, thank you. We do not have a planning board update. Yeah, they had some open items in their report dated March 13th. Their last meeting was on March 10th. Yeah, I was going to say March 10th. And their next meeting is April 14th. So they have yet to review the response. So if the two liaisons could make sure that this gets on their agenda for next week, so that they can look at that.
I mean, they kind of gave us their recommendations and things to look for and ask about, so I don't know if the planning board feels like they need to do another memo, but I think we have, I mean.
Can I speak?
Oh, sure. Yeah, why don't you come on up?
Hi, Julia Weisberg, I'm chairperson of the planning board, so it's my understanding that the advisory memo that we sent was our consensus on the application, so I just wanted to correct you that was our memo, and we turned it in unless.
Yes, no, we have.
Yeah,
it.
we do.
have it.
Yeah, I just,
Great.
not being a liaison, and I haven't watched that meeting yet. I didn't know.
No, we submitted it.
Okay. Okay, good.
Julia.
Yes, thank you for that. And then Caitlin, I saw that you were on. I didn't know if you had anything that you wanted to update. See a new memo.
Good evening, Caitlin Conning for the record. We do not have an update. Our stance remains the same as the last hearing, that we that the town board consider imposing a condition of site plan approval that prohibits parking within the town regulated area.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I will open it up to the applicant if you want to fill us in on any new information.
Hello, our smaller board. I'm Julia Brennan. I am the capital projects manager at Sylvester Manor and a resident of Shelter Island. So this was a great segue because we did want to respond to what Caitlin had recommended at the last hearing. She suggested that in the conversation that we limit the grassy overflow parking that's proposed north of the Manor House, that we not have any grassy overflow parking there because of potential conflicts also with the ADA parking area that's going to be there. We want to make sure that that area is completely separated and its care is given to the ADA needs. It's also on a curve. There's lots of good reasons for us not to have parking in that area on the grass there. And we certainly would comply with any kind of limited and very specific recommendation. But the way that she phrased it, and she just phrased it again, is that the town would impose as a condition of site plan approval, a prohibition of any parking within the town regulated area. We don't have any parking lots that are within the town regulated area. What we have are parking areas or roads that go through in various locations where we may have people park alongside the road. And we certainly understand the sensitivity of these areas, but we have some uses that we would not be able to function as we currently do and as we were under our special permit from the ZBA, enabled to continue certain uses that periodically may require us to have vehicles parked in certain areas that are within the town regulated area. Not as a parking lot, not as a, here's where we want you to park tonight, all you 50 cars. But when you think about the grassy lawn in front of the Manor House, we are concerned that if we were trying to do uses like concerts that sometimes are presented in coordination with Suffolk County. Suffolk County has the showmobile. The showmobile comes on the back of a trailer truck and gets dropped off and is basically parked in that location for the duration. It doesn't even get, it's the same.
It's just a truck that
Excuse me,
comes and
can
they
I-
open up the
Can I
stage.
interrupt for a second? I just want to clarify. When you talk about the are you talking about the what, regulated wetlands area? You
That's
use the
what
term
was
regulated area.
suggested to us, is that we can't park.
Regulated wetland.
No vehicles in the regulated wetlands.
Right.
Okay,
A
okay.
0 to 75-foot wetlands buffer.
As it is right now.
Yes, as it currently stands, yes.
As it currently stands. So we do have other uses. We have the stage, we have summer Shakespeare that may require the drop off of equipment. Somebody's gonna have to park a car to drop things off. We have outdoor art exhibitions. We have artists who come and install materials. They may need to park a car that
if we don't have those wetlands continuously flagged the whole length of Gardener's Creek, it would be very difficult for us to indicate to people where they have to stop. These are all very temporary actions. Our farm to table celebration, we bring a lot of vendors come to deliver materials. They deliver tents. The tents are then erected. They bring catering equipment that's put into the tents, and then they come back and pick it all up later. We also have other areas that have the only parking that's available is probably within that, certain aspects of it might be within that regulated area. And that's people who are coming to the Quaker meeting on Sundays. That road winds along a very wet area, and on either side of the road, you're probably within 75 feet of the regulated wetlands. And so our concern would be this would limit the capacity of people to come to that particular meeting that happens in good weather in the summertime. We also have our own maintenance vehicles and vendor vehicles who provide services to us. We might have tree trimming, we might have other work that requires parking a vehicle even just temporarily, when our own staff are, for instance, gathering up sticks that have fallen during a storm. They might drive a pickup truck down to where the sticks have fallen and throw the sticks in the back of the truck. That truck is parked. We can't have a generalized ban in this situation. We also have hunters come to Sylvester Manor as part of the annual town call. Sometimes they're tracking an animal that's been injured. Sometimes they need to bring a truck close enough to haul a carcass into a truck. This all might put cars within our vehicles within that 75-foot boundary. We know that your past practice has been to accept testimony during the public hearing. We do not have our attorney with us. It's very expensive for us to have our attorney with us the whole time. And so when you're discussing the conditions of approval during subsequent work sessions, there's no public comments allowed at that point. And what we would ask is that if this is something that you're considering, that we have an opportunity to have our attorney work with us to develop a response to this, because we really haven't had a chance to do that. We think these are reasonable. We have some reasonable objections to a broad ban on parking in this area. There's numerous waterfront businesses around the island with numerous examples of parking that is allowed elsewhere in the town regulated areas, and have parking lots in the town regulated areas, including town parking lots in this regulated area. We're not talking about trying to put a parking lot anywhere. We're just talking about the occasional temporary parking of vehicles in order for us to be able to conduct our business. We know that there are town permits that are granted to people who are doing business on town property, where the only place for people to park are in town parking areas that are certainly within 75 feet of the wetlands boundaries all along the beaches, especially on Shore Road. So we're worried that something is being carved out just for Sylvester Manor that doesn't apply elsewhere, and we just want to make sure that we have an opportunity to have an effective response should you decide to make this a condition of approval. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Before I open it up to the public, Rick, I guess on that last point of allowing, if we're going to allow the attorney to be able to weigh in on conditions that we want to impose, how do we deal with that?
You want to be very clear about when you close the public hearing. So the public hearing should close on a date certain. Up to that point in time, everyone should have an opportunity. The easiest way to do it is actually at a board meeting, because that way the parties can, go back and forth. It's a lot harder to do it on paper, because one side might submit, their comments 10 minutes before the hearing closes on 5 o'clock on, a given day. And so the other side doesn't get a chance to respond to that. So the easiest way to do it, I think, would be to continue the hearing at a town board meeting and then close it at that time, so that, verbal comments can be taken up to the very last second. But you want to be very clear when the record closes, and it should close for everybody, ideally at the same time.
Teresa, I see you raised your hand.
Just one way to potentially alleviate some concerns with respect to the parking in or near the wetlands is establish a reasonable distance from the wetlands boundary, be it 10, 15, 25 feet, and install a post and rail fence. So that way you're not actually encroaching on the wetlands themselves. And so if you do have temporary parking for an event for the purposes of offloading equipment or the showmobile, you're not encroaching into those wetlands by accident. Same thing with like, if you do have to park on the side of the road because of the, that there is insufficient parking for what particular event there is, again, you're not encroaching on the wetlands. And a post and rail fence is relatively easy to install. It doesn't impede pass and repass of wildlife. It does prevent encroachment onto the wetlands. So that's something that could be offered as potential compromise, is to establish a distance that you feel is acceptable at 10 to 25 feet, and then install that post and rail fence along that boundary so that there's a clear delineation, so you know that they're not going to encroach onto the wetlands themselves. But then they can still provide for those offloading and temporary parking opportunities if necessary.
Thank you. Okay. Any questions from the board before I open it up to the public?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you want to address the fence idea?
So our shoreline on Garner's Creek is about a mile long. And so the idea of us simply putting up a post and rail fence that's a mile long is, in order to create this kind of boundary, seems to me not to be a practical solution to the problem.
I do have a question. So in the ZBA ruling, they said that have it highlighted, you are limited to the scope of the prior use for events and things like that. So one of the questions I had is, for an event like the Farm to Table, how many attendees do you typically have?
400. Oh, well, 350 to 400.
When I Googled it, it came up around 400.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah, okay. And then same thing with Shakespeare at the Manor and the Creekside concerts. For the Shakespeare, one of the reports I got was 200 people over the course of the weekend. I don't know if that's accurate. And then for the Creekside concerts, I'm sure that probably depends on the band.
And I think that we should probably go back through the record that was submitted at the zoning board and provide you with those answers, because it was a matter of record.
If it's in the record, then I can go back
somewhere
and find it.
It might just be in the transcript maybe.
All right, I'll look.
It's 200
It's 200 per. 200 per.
For the Shakespeare?
For Shakespeare.
For Shakespeare. Okay. And then the Creekside concerts vary depending on your.
But it's never more than.
Ours is the biggest we've ever had. Probably the biggest we ever had was 425.
So 425.
Yeah.
Ish.
Okay. Thank you. You want to get like an idea of the scope.
The other thing that the ZBA limited us to is we're not allowed to construct any new structures.
Right.
Without going back to the ZBA to ask specific permission for it. So the idea that we would have any kind of buildings and new structures, it's not gonna happen immediately. It's something we're gonna have to work through the ZBA.
Agricultural structure.
Agricultural structures, yes. Right. We needed another greenhouse that has a different permitting process.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you. So Caitlin.
Hi, yes, so just wanted to go back to the Peter Garcia memo dated March 10th. So the language that we had added, we were really talking about in the eastern unpaved parking area, where they're going to add the 3 ADA spaces that would create that physical barrier to prevent encroachment. when looking at the parking areas for visitors during events, not necessarily looking at vendors or some, other professionals coming and dropping things off, tents. We were only looking at the, again, visitors, I guess attendees, maybe a better word. So I do see that from the applicant's perspective, that imposing that condition kind of blanketly prohibits some other activities going on, but we still should be protective for the wetlands. So maybe there's some language that could be worked out with the town attorney that really attendees or visitors should not be within that area, but allowing for some of these special events, but that they still cannot, the professionals coming to drop items off, vendors setting stuff up, cannot encroach onto the wetland area.
Thank you. All right. Else? At the table? And I will open it up to the public, and Mike Gaynor, you had signed up.
Please. Thank you. Hi, Mike Gaynor, 8 and 10 Cobbetts Lane. As I think everybody in the town now pretty well knows, I'm opposed to this process that's taking place here. And my issues have to do principally with the character of the applicant and the past performance of the applicant and the application and the past performance of the town. I've made all these statements before.
And since this is a continuation, you have made some of these statements before, so we generally like to hear new information.
100%, you're about to get some new information right now, Amber. So last week on that topic, Wednesday, 2 employees from the town of East Hampton, just across the South Ferry on 114, they were arraigned on felony charges for fixing building permit problems, big city stuff. These 2 folks are likely going to prison. Stuff like that doesn't happen around here. Suffolk County Public Corruption Bureau arrested them. They're being represented by my buddy Eddie Burke Jr. And so I'm going to present all sorts of facts tonight, but I'd like you guys to take this to heart because it speaks to what my concerns are here. And I've mentioned this many times. I've been very vocal inside of this community. These folks are going to prison likely because they traded they traded a building permit solution, a permit solution for money, right? I'm going to make an argument here tonight that these folks have avoided the permit process because you folks have traded votes, right?
Hold on just a second. I took it down because we're not going through that at the moment, so I want this the screen to be shown.
And so that's going to be my argument. I'm going to speak to the past behavior of this board that I've made this point already, that you're unfit to be hearing this application based on your previous performance inside of this thing. And these folks, their application, this thing that your consultants there are responding to, it's the size of War and Peace. It's 196 pages long. And their comments are reflective of this document. And this document basically says that they're going to go out there and they're going to fix up the historic Sylvester Manor. That's what this speaks to, and that's what your consultants are responding to. And I believe the character of these applicants and the character of the town board are completely glazing over what actually has taken place here. This applicant has been allowed, and please correct me, and I'm going to call you out on this when I'm done making my statement. This applicant has been allowed to avoid the building permit problem for 16 years. Is that a truthful statement? Did the town allow them to do that or not, Amber? It's a very simple question.
They are before us, and there's been a process to get them here, and we are here now.
But they did not have a building permit. Somebody greased the wheels, right? It started off with Jim Doherty. It didn't happen. There's something that changed inside of this, inside of Sylvester Manor. They haven't been doing that. They haven't had 13 farm to table properties. They haven't had concerts year in and year out. Has something changed about the condition of Sylvester Manor? So this is this is like a baseline fact. You have allowed them, you have greased the wheels. This town board has allowed them, just like those inspectors that are going to prison over at East Hampton, that are helping people get out from under building permits for cash. You guys have allowed them to operate illegally for 16 years without going through this permit process. Yes or no?
This is a time for public comment. It's not a back and forth.
So you're not going to answer the question. That's fine. Please bring up my presentation again. Take your time. Sorry for the hoarse voice. I got a little sick on the floor. It's not going to shut me up. So, you know.
Do we have an email? Yeah.
You do it without pictures.
Nope. There we go.
It's not showing up on the Zoom screen.
How about now?
It's just loading. Okay.
There you go.
Take your time.
Okay.
We can take the shot of Ben. Yeah. We can go on to the next slide, please, Fed. Thank you. I'm going to go through a quick history of Sylvester Manor and how we got here. Had we had this conversation 16 years ago, when we were supposed to happen, I wouldn't have to go through the 16 years of history, but now I have to. Okay? Alice Fisk dies 2006. Her nephew inherits the property, basically 230, 240 acres, whatever it is. At that point in time, it's a single family residence. 2009 rolls around. My neighbor, Sarah Gordon, goes to the federal government with a check for $500, and she says, we're going to create a not-for-profit organization, right? She goes to the federal government, to the Department of the Treasury, and she says, we're going to create a not-for-profit corporation, and it's very, very simple what they're going to do there. This is so simple. I didn't graduate from high school. I'm not a super smart guy. She goes to the federal government. Sean Clark did the very same thing. There's 38 not-for-profits on this island. He's got one to save the quails. She went out, Sarah Gordon goes to the federal government, and she says, in as few words as possible, the purpose of our organization is we are going to preserve and protect the historic Sylvester Manor. That's it. And as a result of that, the government says, awesome, you don't have to pay any taxes ever again to the federal government. No federal taxes, no state taxes, no local taxes, because you just got $1 billion worth of real estate, and you promised us that you're not going to do anything with it. You're going to preserve it. It was that simple. From that moment on, the moment that happened, they started operating a not-for-profit educational institution in 2009 in a residential zone. Jim Doherty knew it at the time, and he knew that this conversation was going to happen back then, and he greased the wheels for them so they didn't have to go through this process. My problem with this entire thing, and I've told you about this, folks, before, when you guys do stuff like that, it's not about some building inspector picking up $1,000 or $6,000, whatever it is. You undermine people's faith in government. Nobody cares what's going on in DC anymore. We haven't for a couple election cycles now, nor do we care about what's going on upstate. The last bastion of freaking democracy is what goes on right here. And so when all those people that came in here today, that woman pleading, please just tell me what to do to get a dock, people start thinking that, who do I have to know in order to get something solved around here? That's my problem with this thing. These folks have been treated with extreme bias, unlike anybody else inside of this community, for 16 years now, time in and time out, and I'm going to go through every single one of those scenarios because they are well documented. I have to get my own notes down here, sorry for a second. So in any event, Fisk dies, she gives the thing to her nephew, he turns around, all the land is protected. It is completely protected. You cannot double protect something. It's not in any way under the threat of development. You can't develop the land. They got the land for $0.
Oh, let me just interrupt. When you file for a federal tax exemption, that applies to income that you earn from an operation. It would have nothing to do with the developability of the land. If they sell the property someday, the tax exemption doesn't matter anymore. They don't own the property. But the property is not sterilized. The federal government cannot sterilize this property against development.
Let me correct you on a couple of points there. In the state of New York, once a not-for-profit organization gets their hands on real property, in order to sell that land, the governor has to sign off on it, the attorney general has to sign off on it, and the New York State Supreme Court has to sign off on it.
Well, that's not true, but
that is 100% true.
No, it's not. You're not talking about the state, though. You were talking about the federal tax exemption.
They received real property.
They didn't get real.
All right, we'll get into a legal debate. You and I can do it afterwards. It'd be great. In any event, they received a bunch of property. It's completely protected. There is no way, the only way, the land is unsubdivided.
Is that why the county paid them X number of $1 million?
Well, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that.
So it wasn't undevelopable.
No, it was. That is the county and our former First District New York State Assemblyman Fred Thiel, to our current Kathleen Stark, county legislator. We're going to get to all those folks in a moment. In any event, please, next slide. The entire story about this entire thing is about our local elected and appointed officials trying to appease a very powerful voting bloc around here. This party right here, this is what you're looking at right now. This thing makes $500,000 a year in 4 hours. They've had 12 of these things. We're on to our 13th one. They've generated close to $7 million in revenue. This is a playground for the rich and famous. These people are untouchable. They have to recuse themselves. One of them was sitting on our zoning board, had to recuse himself from the zoning process. One of them is sitting on our town board. He had to recuse himself from this process. We had 3 of them on our planning board. They had to recuse themselves from the process. The tentacles of this thing travels through our entire community, Rick, and it's a real problem. It's a cancer. And I'll continue to go on, and you can see all of the various times where I've called people out on this. In any event, we'll go to the next slide. In 2024, I show up at this board, and apparently I uncovered the worst kept secret inside of this community that these guys have been, that they've been operating illegally since 2009, and everybody knew it. Jim Doherty knew it, Gary Girth knew it, Jerry Siller knew it, and Amber knew it, and every single person knew it, and they were allowed to operate illegally. Every single other person in this community, you heard these people, the weight of permits and licenses and freaking all of this other stuff, every single other person gets held to task on this stuff. These folks have never been held to task. Please take me to the next slide. My argument here is that this thing, on the surface, all of their statements about all of these things that nobody can pin them down on, Go look at the zoning board of appeals meetings for this thing when they try and explain. They can't explain what it is that they do. They call themselves an educational institution. The only thing that I can find out that they do, just look at their balance sheet. I'm a business guy. Go look at their P&L. They make the bulk of their money from having these events. That's it. How else do you define an event venue? They have a farm to table party every summer on June, for one night in June. They make over $500,000 and they have concerts. They advertise for these things on Eventbrite, okay? And they sell tickets. That's it. Hundreds of people show up. No one knows how many people show up. In one conversation, in their own public comments, it went from 125 to 200 to 300 to 500 on any given day. Who knows how many people are showing up inside of this thing? Please take me to the next slide. 16 years have taken place inside of this thing, tens of millions of dollars. This slide I do want to hold everybody on, because nobody can seem to get themselves to get in their car and drive over and take a look at this place. This place is one of the most historic properties in the United States of America. There's this misnomer out there right now that these guys own this property. First of all, these are temporary part-time employees of an organization, as are you folks. They don't own anything. These are not owners like the folks that you talked to tonight who came here to talk about their homes. This thing is the property of the United States of America. This is basically 300 years of history in this country of slavery, and it is falling into the ground, and these are the stewards of it. I'm going to walk you through the finances very quickly of how much money, and I want you to take a hard look at that building. This is what's gone into that property in the form of conservation easements, right? In 2011, they picked up $2.6 million. In 2012, in the form of a conservation easement, they picked up $4.6 million. In 2019, they picked up $2,055,000. In 2023 through 2026, they picked up a grant for $3,750,000 from the Mellon Foundation, another grant for $1.8 million from the New York State Council for the Arts, another grant for $750,000 from the National Park Service, another grant for $500,000 from the New York State Office of Historic Preservation, another grant for $675,000 from the New York State Environmental Protection Fund, another grant for $500,000 from the New York State Council for the Arts that you gave them a big outlay for, Amber. Another grant for $100,000 from the African American Cultural Organization. And then there's me at the bottom of the pile. I gave them 30 grand. I gave them 30 grand because they told me they were going to clean that place up. If somebody could show me so much as a receipt for a quart of primer that they've purchased in 16 years to apply to that building, I'll shut up. You'll never hear from me again. That's never happened. Tell me where all that money has gone. I'll give you the grand total on it. Oh, wait a minute, I forgot this one. This one's kind of important. I just found out about this one last week, thanks to my friend Pam Demarest, who's a super helpful person inside of this community. Last year in April, about a year ago today, they picked up $3,781,540 from the Suffolk County Drinking Water Protection Program for 7.28 parcel, a 7.28 acre parcel of land. $3,781,540. Al, you're concerned about the water. Do you think that this organization, that $4 million being applied to this organization is helping our drinking water problem? Meg? How many IA systems would $3,700,000 buy inside of this community? You could basically kit out 150 homes in the center and solve that problem so we wouldn't have to talk about it. But they got it. Somebody please explain that to me, how that happened. For a grand total of $21,221,540, and look at the condition of that property, 16 years later. Please tell me where that money went. That doesn't include the $7 million from their big fancy party that they have every June for their well-heeled supporters that everybody wants to appease here so that you guys can capture their votes every couple of years. Please go to the next slide. This thing's 0.6 miles away from here. Everybody knew what was going on. Next slide, please. You've heard my points. Does this look like any of that money has gone into this place? I strongly encourage everybody to go over there and take a hard look at this place. I want to impress upon everybody about this thing right now. Whatever decision you guys make, long after you're gone, when Shelby's kids are growing up here, they're going to have to deal with this, just like I'm having to deal with Jim Doherty's mistakes, right? All of this stuff about, well, they're telling us this and they're telling us that, they're not going to be here. They now have a permit in their hot little hands from the Zoning Board of Appeals that says they can have 2 concerts a year, and about 1 sentence of text that describes what those things are, Margaret, and you keep on focusing on, well, this is what they did last year or whatever. What's going to happen 10 years from now when somebody has that document? They have a toehold inside of the ground that says, hey, we got a permit here. We have a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Somebody please tell me what a defined term is for a concert. Because I'll tell you what a defined term is for a concert for Coachella. Coachella is a multi-day procedure. Is a concert a 1 hour thing, a 4 hour thing? Is it a day? Is it multiple days? Do you know they're marketing after they got that permit in their hot little hands? They're marketing to their to all of their supporters right now. This year they're going to have, did they tell you about this one yet? They're going to have a concert festival. Does that sound like a concert, or does that sound like a lot of concerts? Please go to the next slide. New York State public hearings law says that a board member's prior public statements, prior vote, or prior conduct demonstrating a fixed viewpoint on a particular applicant or application constitutes a disqualifying basis. I think all of your backgrounds and all of your track records in dealing with this applicant are a basis for a recusal. I've said it before, and I'm going to move through this point. Now I'm going to make my points. Please go to the next slide. Sylvester Manor is a tax and charity scam. I've been scammed personally for $30,000 from these folks. They told me they would take my money and do something good with it. I asked them as late as Saturday to give me my money back, and they won't respond to me and give me my money back. Is that much to ask? I can go to the IGA and return fruits and vegetables, and they'll give me my freaking money back. All I said is just give me my money back. You told me you were going to fix up the house. Give me my 30 grand back and I'm out of your hair. I've been asking them for years now. They refuse to do it. Fair warning to everybody inside of this community. Next time you think about giving these guys a dime, heed all of this, what's going on here. Please go to the next slide. I'm going to call out 2 specific transactions that took place here. Amber and Al, this is a specific reason why you guys should recuse yourself from this thing. In 2019, they had at Christmas time, 1 week before Christmas, a piece of legislation. You guys have all seen these before with the Community Preservation Fund. Nobody's in town, less people that are in around here right now. A 16-acre parcel of land of this 230 plus acres. Somebody draws a line around it, and I think it's Fred Peel. Draws a hashtag line around it, it's an unsubdivided parcel of land, and says, we absolutely have to protect this parcel of land. It's got to get protected. There's 142 acres behind it right there that are completely unprotected. There are thousands of acres over on the North Fork that have all of their development rights intact, and there is no threat of them ever being developed because everybody knows they'd never make it through the process to be developed. Somehow 16 there's nothing historical about their property, nothing, there's no basis for it. We drew a line around it, and this was just a conservation easement. We didn't get the land. It's not like we get to erect a skateboard park there or something. We drew a line around it, and we sent them a wire transfer for $2,055,000. And all we got out of it was a promise that they weren't going to develop a parcel of land that they couldn't develop. There's nothing they could do. The only thing they could do is build a farm building there. And that would be a great improvement. That's about it. That was completely fraudulent transaction. That is local elected officials passing off money to their friends to ensure themselves of getting elected during the next election cycle. That's all that was. Nothing else took place. Please go to the next slide. Happen again, like I told you, this just happened in April. My neighbor came over here to talk to me about this today. No one wants to say anything inside of this community. I'm the only one crazy enough to do it because I don't give a crap what anybody thinks about me. Those are the 2 parcels of land that we just paid $4 million to go get protected from development. Those are undevelopable properties. You couldn't build a doghouse on those properties. Go drive down Winthrop over there. Kids go and play over there in the summer. That's where the kids from the yacht club go over there. And supposedly we used water tax money set aside to protect our drinking water, which is all you people talk about, is protecting our drinking water. And we went and gave these guys $3,700,000 to protect those 2 pieces of land. It was a complete scam. Last year was a big year, wasn't it? It was an election year. So yard signs weren't enough for Catherine Stark. She needed to make sure that she had a powerful voting block that was getting paid off inside of this thing. And that's the way to do it. And they're not done yet. They still have over 100 acres over there. So every time they want to go back to the well and go get another conservation easement, again, long after you're gone, we're going to keep on paying. They have turned this into a process. They have figured this thing out. Please go to the next slide. This is happening everywhere. I've already talked about this. These people are permeating everywhere. This woman right here, Kathleen Gerard, who just turned in her her resignation for the Community Preservation Fund, she's been a focal point inside this thing. She's sitting on the Community Preservation Fund, and she sits on their board of trustees, and she's in charge of all of the building and land use over there. And she sits on both of those boards. She's been a focal point, along with Ben, who was the former president. He was there when that transaction took place in 2019 that you guys signed off for. He received the wire on it. His signature is on that transaction. Then he comes and he sits on the town board. Everyone is in on this thing. Please go to the next slide. They've been getting away with everything forever. This is inside of the paper, right? We've talked about this. Beyonce has a concert over there. It's defined as a mega film inside of the town code. There's all sorts of permitting fees that are associated with it. They don't get cited for it. I had to sue the town over this BS in order to get you guys to take action. And finally, they were required to pay what the original permit fee was. That was it. Meanwhile, we lost out on God knows how much licensing money we could have squeezed out of Disney. As I told you, 1 year prior to this, HBO offered to film here for one night, offered us $55,000, and we walked away from it. The town could have gotten hundreds of thousands of dollars. They knew that they had friends in high places and they could just pull this off and nobody's going to know about it. It was in the paper. And they didn't get a ticket. And it was just like, I had to go crazy about it. Please, next slide. As a result of that, I finally uncovered that this thing is operating illegally. It's going through the zoning board of appeals process. I call you guys out and I say they shouldn't be allowed to have any parties until the ZBA actually finally does what it's supposed to do in the first place and give these people a permit or not give them a permit. But they shouldn't be operating illegally in a AA zone. Ben recuses himself at the time. You three say that they can't have a noise variance, and what happens? Please go to the next slide. Ben shows up at the party where they're not supposed to have the music, and I'm up until 11 o'clock at night listening to this. Last weekend, I went down to St. Petersburg. I stayed out till 3 o'clock in the morning. I was basically getting lap dances by college cheerleaders by the night was over. I do crazy and stupid shit like that all the time too. That's not my problem with this. And I don't even care about the concerts or any of that stuff. What I care about is that he thumbed his nose and they thumbed their nose at the law. And for the other guys out there that don't have my kind of bank, people in this town, because I talk to them all the time, the guys that work at the gas station and on the ferry and the stuff, who can't defend themselves, and they see stuff like this, it undermines people's faith in government. That's my problem. When Ben did that, that guy should resign over that. That was not funny. He was sitting here at the last board meeting. He thought that was a hoot. that he did that. I didn't sneak in there with a pair of nods and take that picture or whatever. These guys took those pictures of everybody after you told them they couldn't have live music there, and they put them up on Instagram. Again, because they have you on lease as far as they're concerned. Nobody's going to take any enforcement action. You guys didn't do anything about this. They didn't so much as get a ticket. Please go to the next slide. Then they double down. Gets even better. So town takes no enforcement action, and they go ahead and they have one of their concerts illegally. The character of this applicant. These are the people who are putting inside of this application that our consultants are relying upon. They're saying that, well, I guess they're telling me the truth, so I'm going to respond to this application. These people who do illegal stuff left and right, and they've been doing it year in, year out, and it's well documented. They have an illegal concert out there. I call out the town, and what happens? Nothing happens. You guys take no enforcement action. Hundreds of people, they served alcohol there. What would happen to somebody else in town? What about Maury Laspia, my buddy, 2 doors down? You want Maury to start having concerts over there? Because Maury has horrible taste in music. If anybody wants to go out and have a concert, can they do that? And what are you going to do to somebody else? What would you do to Andrea Carter? And what have you done to Andrea Carter and other people? What about the hotels that everybody's worried about down on Crescent Beach? What if they started doing stuff like this? Are you not going to take enforcement action against them either? Next slide, please. I confront the town board, never cited, end of story, bias. You folks need to recuse yourself. You were all in office at the time. You shouldn't be hearing this application. Next slide, please. After the noise violation and the illegal concert in 2025, I come back, or rather those dates are wrong in there, in 2024, I come back in 2025. Not only do you not freaking reprimand them for having an illegal concert and violating their noise permit, you actually allow them to have the concerts this year, this time 2 of them, even though they still haven't been approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals to operate over there, to operate their concert venue, which is exactly what they're doing. You still allow them. You allow them to have both of those things. You take no action against them, and you allow them to have 2 concerts. The reason you do that, because last year was a big election year, and you were up for election, and you wanted to beat Gordon, and Meg was up for election, and these are a powerful voting bloc. And you guys are no better than those 2 inspectors in East Hampton that are on their way to prison right now. They took money. You were trading votes for your favors here, period. Next slide, please. They go to the Zoning Board of Appeals finally in September of this year. Big day's up, and they have the Zoning Board of Appeals. This is the work session from September 17th. Go listen to this thing. If you people do nothing else, if no one else does anything, go listen to this thing and listen to the logic, the underlying logic about this thing. Town attorney Tim Hill, super smart guy. He says we have to find a nexus between everything that they're doing there. It's got to be an intersection. The zoning code says in order to operate in a AA zone, they need to be an educational institution. We need to find a nexus, an intersection between everything that you're doing. And our zoning board says, you know what? I think concerts have something to do with education. Somehow concerts, to this day, no one can explain it to me, that they should be allowed to have concerts. Hundreds of persons concerts. As a matter of fact, they don't put any stipulations on them whatsoever, except for this sentence inside of there that Meg seems to want to keep on leaning into, that whatever they did in the past, which they did illegally for 16 years. So, I mean, try and apply that logic to any person inside of this town. Al just laid the boots to some guy telling him to rip up, who's trying to figure out how to pay for his new baby daughter, laid the boots to him, telling him to go rip up a slab, but because he installed it illegally. But these guys were going to, well, the standard is you only did it illegally for 16 years. And so we'll set that, that'll be our stake in the ground. That's some brilliant logic right there to assess these people by. That's this applicant's being treated with bias by you. You treat other applicants that show up here left and right one way, you treat them another way altogether. Next slide, please. This is what happens when concerts get out of control. Whether you guys want to admit it or not, you live in the Hamptons. This is not some far off land. We talked about this already. This is the Shinnecock Indian Reservation. It's not 40 miles away from here. They started off a few years ago and they were having a couple of 100-person concerts, and the town of Southampton lost control of it. Last year, it clocked in at 10,000 people, right? This year, they think it's going to be 20,000 people. And you know who's going to have to deal with that? It's not going to be you guys, because it's not going to happen this year. It's going to be Shelby's kids. That's who's going to have to deal with it. And they're going to be standing up here going crazy like I am. And they're going to be like, what the F? Traffic is backed up 114 all the way down to each ferry. I can't get out, because I've seen that happen before. I lived in Sag Harbor. And when stuff like this gets out of control, you guys are all be off the hook, right? You know, you'll have moved on. 3, 5, 7, 10 years from now, after you guys are all gone, this is what you guys are setting up here. You've got to get back to the ZBA. The town giveth and the town taketh away. They have a special permit right now. Go back to the ZBA, tear it up. It was made in bad faith. The application was not clear. Get back to the ZBA and start over and do this process correctly, because you didn't do it correctly this time. Next slide, please. I'm never going to let this. Actually, I got corrected. I think very highly of this planning board guy. Sean, what's his last name? Davey. Sean Davey reached out to me. He's like, Mike, don't put words in my mouth kind of thing, because everybody's shit scared of coming out and saying anything inside of town. Go listen to his statements inside of this planning board thing. I think it's very clear the spirit of what he was saying. They give these documents, they're completely unclear, they don't want to be pinned down on anything. Even if they were to be completely clear, as you've said, like emitters inside of landscaping systems, who's going to enforce this stuff? I called you guys out on this the last time. If they say there's going to be 300 people at the concert, are you guys going to go volunteer 2 Saturday nights or whatever when they have the concerts to go click them in? Is it going to be the police department? Should Jimmy Reed be stuck with the mess that you guys are creating here? There is no reason inside of this small community to have a 230-acre concert venue. None whatsoever. Another one doesn't exist. There's not a privately held concert venue anywhere on the east end of Long Island. The county has various places where people can go have concerts, and they highly regulate those places. The Hampton Classics playgrounds, all of these various places. This is a private entity. They're an LLC or a corporation or whatever, not-for-profit corporation. Another one doesn't exist, and now they're in the business of having concerts. That needs to go. You get them to take it very simple. This is very simple. This is my ask. This is my big finish. Go back to the zoning board, make them go back to the zoning board, take concerts out of this process. They can have their stupid farm to table party for all their rich friends and stuff, and that's great. $700 a plate, $1,000 a plate. I really don't care. You are setting up a disaster area with these concert things. It's going to metastasize into this massive thing. Some really smart people are going to get a hold of this thing someday, and it's going to go ridiculous. There's going to be thousands of people. It's not about me and my house. I'm out of here. Trust me. I could care less. People have said, "Well, you're just worried about your own backyard." That's not it at all. I actually care about this community, and it's a ridiculous thing to allow them to do. Next slide, please. Take a good hard look at what Sylvester Manor looks like and what our town board has achieved in the last 16 years with these folks. This is a mess, folks. And you guys did this. I didn't do this. And I haven't been around here that long. You guys allowed this thing to happen. That is a national treasure. And you guys got to come up with a smart solution. I'm not a smart guy. Maybe you need another like Taylor Island. Maybe you need another board to oversee these guys or something. Some people who are not, going to their parties or something. I don't know. But this thing is one of the most historical landmarks. I've tried to appeal to the ethical side of this community. It got me absolutely nowhere because we have no moral compass, apparently, relative to the fact that that place was a slave market for 200 years. It's not mentioned inside of the historical society anywhere. Nobody seems to want to talk about it. There's not a plaque anywhere in this community. Fine, you don't want to talk about that. Do something to protect that building. They're not capable. If they haven't pulled it off in 16 years, they're not going to do it in the next 16 years. So I don't know what the solution is, but I'm smart enough to know that whatever they're doing is not working. Next slide. I think I'm done here. You've heard my recommendations. You guys need to recuse yourself based on your prior behavior. And the best thing I can come up with is that toss this thing back to the planning board. I do feel think very highly of the planning board. I think they'd be well equipped. They have the time to read 196 page applications and sniff through the BS from what limited exposure I've had to them and start this process over again. And I'm sorry that it's going to take them more time and everything. Permits suck, as every single person inside of this community knows. It's time for them to pay the bill on this thing. And that's it. Mike Gaynor out.
Mike, I just want to say something here. The zoning board of appeals made a determination on a special permit application. The town cannot send it back to the zoning board. They made a determination on October 27th of last year. That decision is final. And there are conditions there that would limit what Sylvester Manor can do in terms of the number of concerts or other events, where they can put them, how many people they can have. There were conditions. The conditions are, they're a little, they're not spelled out in precise numbers. I get that.
Rick, I don't want to insult you. You're here for the night or whatever. You're an attorney. A lot of people around here are impressed by attorneys. I'm not. They fucked it up. It's time to unfuck it. That was a remarkably poor decision.
Go back to the zoning board. It's done.
All right, well, hey, I hope everybody's comforted by it.
You're a neighbor.
Well done,
You
zoning
could have
board.
challenged the decision if you didn't agree with it. It's a final decision.
Good luck with that. Have a great night, everybody.
Do we have anyone else who wishes to speak on this?
Can I just suggest that you have a time limit on public comment for everybody? And you've heard all that before, and you should not let that happen. It demeans you, it demeans the whole process, it demeans all of us in this room. Really, you need a procedure and a process, not just for that, but for everything else. It's not on to let someone like that hijack this meeting, this board, and this community. That's all I would say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just if there's nobody else.
Okay, is there anyone on Zoom who wishes to speak? Pam? You're muted, Pam.
I'm sorry. Good evening. I just wanted to make sure that you received my submission today about the conservation easements. This is very confusing on on the whole 273 acres. What parts of it are conserved for preservation? What areas cannot be developed? I mean, it's 22 acres here, it's 16 acres there, it's 7 acres there. I really would like to ask Sylvester Manor to provide a survey showing the delineations of these. I mean, some of it's Suffolk County with development rights taken away. Some of it is the Peconic Land Trust, and now Suffolk County has purchased some properties. I don't think we're really clear on what is actually conserved, and I know that from the comprehensive plan conversations. It's not really clear, and I do feel the same concern that Ms. Mason has and Caitlin have over the wetlands and the parking. I mentioned the parking, the last board public hearing about how many spaces it is would make this now a type 1 project according to our town code. No one has addressed that this evening. I don't know how that's getting handled. If you have 200, 300, 400 people attending an event, that's more than 20 parking spaces. So I'd like to see the town board address that issue. And also really look into what's the conservation easement, because I've traveled around the country to national parks, and there are certain parks like Crater Lake in Oregon there that you cannot drive close to the edge of the waterways there because of the cars dripping their oils and gasoline and all of the pollutants that wind up into the water there. Now they actually have electric buses that take you to that lake, and I feel the same way about this location and the sensitivity of that, and how many, and what are we doing to mitigate any problems such as that? So keeping the parking away from 75 feet from the wetlands seems reasonable. It may not seem easy for them to do, but it certainly seems reasonable from an environmental standpoint. We know that Gardner's Creek does not have a good flush of water, just like Dickerson Creek, as we heard this evening. I just would like the board to request that a full environmental assessment form is submitted, as well as a true survey showing the exact locations of every parcel, subdivision, subpiece of this property that is protected for future generations to come, if nothing else. Thanks.
Caitlin, I see you turned your screen on.
Yeah, so I was trying to find the raise hand icon. I can address the seeker classification if the board would like me to.
Yes.
So this was in consultation with Thomas Crouch. And with regard to the parking, it is for the events that are existing at the site today, and that the parking facilities, they're already parking those cars today. So the interpretation is that it would not pass or exceed that type 1 threshold in the town code because it's an existing use. And based on the site plan submitted materials, it would not increase the parking over 20 spaces. So this would be a type 2 action pursuant to multiple different sections of part 17.5 in the type 2 action list, which was in our memo dated October 31st, 2025.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in Zoom?
If you want me to just address the conservation quickly.
Yes.
So Stephen Searle, Executive Director, Sylvester Manor. So there have been, actually Pam brought up a good point, right? There has been a lot of conservation over the years. There's a number of different conservation easements on the property. I would hope that the board has a survey, a map of those. Okay. Now also recall that the site plan application is for one parcel, right? It doesn't necessarily include all of those conservation easement areas, right? Just like the ZBA does not include the entire 236 acres because there's a number of different parcels, including the farm. There's a whole farm on that side, which we're really not talking a whole lot about because obviously it's not under, a part of that application, that of the original ZBA. So that's something that we've gone kind of back and forth with both the ZBA and our own attorney about that. And still, we're perfectly forthcoming with anything and everything that you need, especially the conservation easement areas, all of that, which I think you're familiar with. But and yes, she is right that there are lots of different restrictions. There are different restrictions for each conservation easement area. I don't know if I'll wait until there are other questions, concerns raised.
Right, if there are no other public comments. Bring it, go ahead, come on up to the podium.
I'm Galen Gingrich. My wife and I have been coming to Shelter Island since '93. Owned a house here since '98, lived here full time since COVID. I've been leading the Sylvester Manor Harvest Service at Union Chapel ever since it existed. I'm now on the Sylvester Manor board. I'm going to pick up on a point Mike made when he was talking about the search for a nexus. And it seems to me that the town board was written for organizations that do one thing: a house, a store, a school, a museum. And the problem with Sylvester Manor is both the challenge to the planning and to the board and to the planning process is that it is a lot of different things. Like we are, as individuals, a lot of different things. I'm a husband and a father and a preacher and a volunteer and a board member, etc. I don't want to have to choose one of those things and do that throughout my life. And I think what Sylvester Manor wants to do is to be the nexus for the community of Shelter Island that it has become. That's happened over time, but it's a lot of different things to a lot of different people, so it doesn't fit neatly into one planning slot. And I think what we are asking you to do is to recognize that the nexus is the community of Shelter Island. And we'd like to preserve this treasure. And we have a lot of the money to do it. And we just need your help to get to the point that we can start. So please, give us that help. Thank you.
I see someone, actually, it looks like, was here earlier, Mr. Peter Levinson? Is that you, named Pamela? You have your video on. Was that in lieu of raising your hand? Or are you just joining the meeting? You're muted.
Unmute. Thank you. Just to very briefly, we have listened to the presentation, and I want to apologize on the behalf of what I think is the overwhelming majority of Shelter Island to the abuse that you have to get from one resident here. It's completely unfair, and I truly appreciate the work and the attention that you spend for this democratic process, which unfortunately unwinds in such an ugly way. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no other public comment, come on up.
Yeah, so our question is about process. To follow up on my question earlier, I'm Julia Brennan, again, from Sylvester Manor. I think that what I heard Caitlin say is that there is an opportunity to talk about that parking having to do specifically with parking areas, which we completely understand and appreciate, rather than the periodic occasional parking of a vehicle to do maintenance or a vehicle to make a delivery or something like that, which is really what we're concerned about, is that we not be limited. And also that there not be a limitation that would be imposed for people who are coming to the Quaker cemetery and the Quaker meeting house, not the meeting house, but the kiosk in the woods, for their religious observations, observances, sorry. Obviously, what we heard here had a lot of false information. I don't want to get into a back and forth. You have the information that you need. If you have any questions about the information that you've received, it's all available on the website for anybody who wants to go through it. We are available to anybody who wants to ask us a legitimate question, and we're happy to engage with people who have questions about the information that we're providing. We've provided information to the best of our ability that's as accurate as we can. This is a very complex project. As Mr. Gager pointed out, it's a giant file with multiple things sort of added at the last minute. So we really appreciate all of your questions, your concerns, and are happy to answer them. What is the next step in the process? Can we close the hearing? Do we have to go with written comments?
That's what I was going to bring back to the three of us.
Yeah, right, that's our question.
Yes, that was going to be my question to the board. Do we have what we need? Questions answered? Do we, so if we have more questions and we want to keep it open so that we can ask those questions. The question that I was concerned about earlier is wanting to be able to go back and forth with Sylvester Manor and their attorney on conditions, and we do need to leave this open. So we'd want to come back and kind of turn the next public hearing into a work session to some extent, where we roll up our sleeves and go through and talk about what conditions and restrictions, and allow ourselves to be able to have that back and forth dialogue.
You don't have to have that at the public hearing, though. When you get to the dialogue, that should be after you close your hearing. And then you're free to discuss among yourselves, and no outside noise can come in at that point.
But if we have any questions or we want
If you have any questions that you don't know that you have answered yet, then you might want to continue the hearing to the next, whatever.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that if we are considering certain conditions, we should ask about them now.
Yes.
So if we have any questions about conditions that we're thinking of putting on, now is the time to ask them.
Right.
The one thing that the reason why I asked, how many people come to the events is because I wanted to add more clarity to what the zoning board had put in their condition.
Right.
So maybe a maximum number of people could be in attendance for certain events. That was.
The only thing I'll say, and look, I'm not completely familiar with the file, obviously, and I have still not seen the site plan, which I'd like to take a look at some point. But the limitations on the nature of the uses, that really goes with the special permit, and the zoning board has done that. Now, there is some unclarity because they didn't throw out exact numbers, but we know it's not 10,000 people at a concert. We know that, okay? What you're dealing with right now is a much more limited thing. You're dealing with the approval of improvements on the site. Some work on the manor house and I guess mainly parking. I mean, your actual function right now is quite limited. You're doing site plan approval. Site plan approvals for improvements and where you put them and what they are. The use issue, all the stuff that Mike was talking about, it's water under the bridge. Whatever you think about his history about things, and I don't know much about the prior history of Sylvester Manor other than they had slaves there for a long time. It's all irrelevant because the zoning board of appeals rendered a decision October 27th of last year. No one challenged that decision. It is now final. It says what uses they can engage in. In some cases, it limits their number per year, and it has a general restriction on the number, the size, the intensity, and all that for those uses. So those are all the special permits things. I wouldn't want to, I don't think you should intrude into that space.
Thank you.
That's helpful. Just to review what the standards of review are. We've got traffic, we've got interior circulation and parking, we've got landscaping and screening, existing development comprehensive plan and prior stipulations, natural features and environmental concerns, cultural features, pavement, lighting, drainage, public utilities, public address or sound system, handicap access / ADA compliance, energy conservation, and size. What do you guys think? Okay. I feel like we have everything in here and.
We have everything.
All right, I'll make a motion to close this then.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Good, okay. Thank you, everyone. Now we will reconvene. Thank you. We're going to lose a lot of people quietly because we've still got a little bit of business. All right, so we'll make a motion to go back into the regular meeting, and we have 4 resolutions. I'll start off with the first one. Whereas Kyle and Thomas Walsh, 28 Dinah Rock Road, petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install a mooring at a location designated as latitude 41.09915 degrees north and longitude 72.34029 west, formerly known as berth 02955, and whereas a public hearing was duly held on the 6th day of April 2026 for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to, now therefore be it resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to issue a permit for the aforementioned installation. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas Stephen Rosamelia, 22 New York Avenue, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to relocate a mooring at a location designated as C3636 to a location designated as latitude 41.06615 degrees north and longitude 72.36470 degrees west, berth W1608, and whereas a public hearing was duly held on the 6th day of April 2026 for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to, Now therefore be it resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to issue a permit for the aforementioned installation. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas Adam Ronzoni, 37A Westmoreland Drive, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to relocate a mooring at a location designated as W3559 to a location designated as latitude 41.05670 north and longitude 72.35787 west, berth W2789, formerly occupied by John T. Conway. And whereas the public hearing was duly held on the 6th day of April 2026 for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to, now therefore be it resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to issue a permit for the aforementioned installation. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Whereas Steve and Cynthia Rudolph, 3 Sheep Pasture Lane, have petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install a mooring at a location designated as latitude 41.08861 degrees north and longitude 72.32301 degrees west, berth W3719, formerly occupied by Quinn Eddy. And whereas a public hearing was duly held on the 6th day of April 2026 for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to, now therefore be it resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to issue a permit for the aforementioned installation. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. We now will open up the meeting for just general public comments. We have no one left in the physical audience. Anyone on Zoom? Okay, I will make a motion to close the town board meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everybody.